Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I am Tony the Quano.
So, Tony, we are going to continue on with our Oscar season Best Picture Winners series. And we're going to be talking about something a little bit more recent than the last one that we did. Last time we did Casablanca, and that was from 1942. Yes. We're going to jump up a little over 60 years.
A little over 60 years, yes.
To 2007. What movie are we doing from 2007?
We're going to go with the Coen brothers classic, No Country for Old Men. It was quite a night for them, the night that they won this. Everyone had been waiting for them to kind of win an Oscar. The year before, Martin Scorsese won his for The Departed, at least, well, for both director and picture for him. And then, this following year, the Coens won for No Country for Old Men. And people had been waiting for them to win an Oscar. And they actually, it's funny because the couple of movies before this were kind of not their best. And this was a return to form. And they won 3 Oscars that night. And the movie won 4, which I'll get to those in a minute. But yeah, it was a big night for them. So big that by the time they won the 3rd Oscar, like, we don't really have anything else to say.
Yeah. Why didn't Big Lebowski win?
Because
it should have.
Paltrow was in Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah, but Big Lebowski was a much better movie.
It was a much better movie. And Big Lebowski wasn't even nominated.
I know.
Everyone thought Saving Private Ryan was going to win, which would have been a fine choice. Big Lebowski is still better than Saving Private Ryan, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Not that I dislike Saving Private Ryan.
No, it's a good movie. Saving Private Ryan is a really good movie.
You look at 1998, they also had Elizabeth, which I've actually never seen Elizabeth. I should watch Elizabeth.
I have not seen Elizabeth either.
With Kate Blanchett, right? You also had Life is Beautiful that year.
With Roberto Benigni.
That was memorable. He had his 15 minutes of fame before he kind of fizzled out. But
yep.
I did watch Life is Beautiful, and it's not a very good movie. I did not like Life is Beautiful.
It's not beautiful?
No.
Huh.
And then it was funny because that year, right? Still the 5 nominees for Best Picture. We had the 2 Elizabethan era movies, Shakespeare in Love and Elizabeth, and then 3 basically World War II movies. You had the war movies and Saving Private Ryan and The Thin Red Line, which is a very good movie. That's probably my favorite of those 5. And then you have Life is Beautiful.
So no room for Big Lebowski.
No room for Big Lebowski. John Goodman didn't even get nominated for Best Supporting Actor, which is absolutely insane to me.
Yeah, he was phenomenal in that movie.
Jeff Bridges is great also in it, but John Goodman was the true standout for that. But
oh yeah,
no, most of their other success really came in terms of nominations was Fargo in '96.
Okay.
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou got a few nominations.
Too bad. Back to Big Lebowski. Too bad Too Excited Trampoline Guy wasn't in there long enough to be considered supporting actor.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have won.
He would have won. His 8 seconds, he nailed every nanosecond of those 8 seconds.
Yes, he did.
We have recorded if you're newer to the podcast, we do have an episode on The Big Lebowski, which you can go back and take a look at. It's one of the early episodes that we have.
Yep.
That's the only other Coen Brothers movie that we've done so far.
I believe it was, our 4th episode? Something like that?
I believe it was the 4th. I think it was the first one after our Star Wars run. So, yeah, go back and check that out if you want to.
Anyway, you were saying about 1996?
That's probably the closest they had come prior to this was for Fargo in 96. And the English Patient one. I mean, come on. The English, no.
Yeah.
And this is where we get into things. Like there are some very bad choices for Oscar winners. And there's some very good choices for Oscar winners.
Yes, there are.
And some have stood the test of time. And so far, I think No Country for Old Men has accomplished that. And I think that entire year, 2007, for the most part, the nominees were very, very good, save for one of them, which would be Juno. I never liked Juno. Maybe we'll do Juno one day. I don't know.
I saw Juno once, after it came out on DVD, and I enjoyed it for what it was, but it wasn't Oscar worthy in my opinion.
I watched it the one time around, I don't remember if it was on video or, I don't remember watching it in theaters. I think I watched it on video. I'm like, okay, it was fine. But I haven't watched it since, and I don't think I've had any feel to go back to it.
Yeah.
The other nominees that year were Atonement, Michael Clayton, and There Will Be Blood. I've never seen Atonement. I should say that. I have never seen Atonement. But overall, that year is a very good year for movies. I mean, Tom Wilkinson almost won for Best Supporting Actor that year for holding the greatest bag of baguettes ever.
Yes.
But he actually lost to someone from this film.
Who, this film had no baguettes.
There were no baguettes in this movie.
I mean, granted, the acting was fantastic in this movie, but there were no baguettes. Tom Wilkinson deserved to win just because of the baguettes. Even though, I mean, he was a fantastic actor too, but but he literally had a grocery bag full of baguettes.
And he lives alone, Michael Clayton. There's no one else that lives in his flat or his apartment. No, it's him. He's going to eat all these baguettes.
He just loves baguettes.
I don't blame him. I love a baguette.
Me too.
Maybe we should do Michael Clayton.
Maybe we should
eventually. I don't know. Should. But so yeah, this is the year. This was No Country's year. I saw a recent tweet because since the Oscars are coming up, and someone's like, "There's a younger person." It's like, "Oh yeah, I wish I could have been there for the 2007 ceremony or the 2008 ceremony for the 2007 movies." The year, right, between like There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men. And it's not like, both movies kind of still stand out. But at the time, Daniel Day-Lewis was definitely the front runner for Best Actor, but people didn't think it was going to win Best Picture. Most people thought it was either going to be No Country or Atonement, which actually won the Golden Globe. But the general consensus was that No Country was going to win Best Picture. So I used to really, really follow the award season very, very, very closely. Not as much as I used to. But yeah, I followed that award season, and it was pretty clear outside that Golden Globe win for Atonement that this was going to be the Coen brothers Oscars, that they were going to probably win 3 Oscars. And those 3 Oscars, since we're talking about that, were for producing the Best Picture, Best Director, Best Screenplay, and the 4th Oscar went to, we mentioned the acting, to Javier Bardem, and Best Supporting Actor.
He was fantastic in this movie.
He was fantastic.
He was fantastic in this movie.
we talk. We go back to 2 weeks ago. We talking about those actors that stand out or kind of villainous turns, right? And here's a villainous turn that just he just blows you away.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into it in this. Yeah, we'll get into his portrayal in this episode. But yeah, he was so convincing.
Well, we'll get into. I have a few other notes about that, but he was convincing to say the least. And it's funny because he probably actually has more screen time in this movie than Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs. But you kind of feel like, he probably is right in supporting actor. And he might have had a hard time winning Best Actor because Daniel Day-Lewis won Best Actor that year, and he was very good.
Uh-huh.
And There Will Be Blood.
Yeah, see, There Will Be Blood is one that I still haven't seen. So it's been on my list of movies to check out for years, but I just haven't gotten around to watching it yet. So maybe we'll have to do it on the podcast sometime. Then I'll be forced to watch it, finally.
One of the nominees that did not happen for acting in this, though I think he was nominated for the Screen Actor Guild for Best Supporting Actor, along with Bardem, is Tommy Lee Jones.
He was great. He was
also great.
I've always been a fan of his anyway, but
I'm a big fan of his, and I would imagine he was probably close to nomination. He didn't quite get it. He would, I think most likely would have been supporting actor. There's a few aspects of that we'll kind of discuss, especially in relation to the book.
I mean, he's one of the people who is one of the titular characters. So the old men there's no country
correct.
For. And it's funny because Tommy Lee Jones has never really looked young.
No. So like Steve Martin has never looked old. Tommy Lee Jones has never looked young. But the crazy thing is, like, the first movie I remember seeing Tommy Lee Jones in was The Fugitive.
Yeah.
Which is now 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I thought he looked about 80 years old. Yeah. And I look at him today, I'm like, he looks about 80 years old.
He looks the same as he did in The Fugitive.
So the other nominations were Best Cinematography for the legend Roger Deakins. He did not win for that. It was a great year for cinematography. Robert Elswit for There Will Be Blood. Roger Deakins was a double nominee that year. For the other one was The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which, again, cinematography in that movie is amazing.
Yeah, it is. Cinematography. I mean, I saw that movie in the theater. I wasn't super impressed with the movie, but the cinematography was fantastic.
I am with you on that, yes. Best film editing, missed out on. So I don't know if we mentioned this for Big Lebowski. Probably not, since we were talking about awards. The Coen brothers edit pretty much all their movies, and they do it under a pseudonym, Roderick Jaynes. So, look at the Oscars, like, they show them for the nominations for the other categories, and for editing, it's Roderick Jaynes. And then, so at this time, they still had the 2 separate sound categories, sound editing and sound mixing. And The Bourne Ultimatum won for both of those categories. So, the Bourne movies, they are really good.
Yeah, they've They've definitely got some good sound in those. So
I'm sure we'll cover one of those eventually because I do like the Bourne movies.
yes, me too.
But yeah, so that was it's Oscar night. It was nominated for 8. It won 4 of them, and they're all big wins.
Nice.
So yeah, since we're talking about old men, so what we have not discussed that this film, it's based off a Cormac McCarthy book called No Country for Old Men. And what's funny about that is that it's actually most of the Coen Brothers movies are kind of original. One of the previous movies, The Lady Killers, was actually a remake, and they said that Oh Brother Where Art Thou is like a very loose adaptation of the Odyssey.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's a Cyclops in there, there's some sirens, but it's
it's
very original.
It's the same basic story.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's got a shell. But you know what?
Yeah.
There's so many movies that just use a classic shell that's kind of like that you wouldn't say is based off of that, right?
But I mean, you also have George Clooney in that movie is Ulysses Everett McGill.
Yes, right.
But he goes by Everett.
But he's not coming back from war.
It's clearly
he escaped from prison.
Yeah. I mean, it's clearly an adaptation of it, but it's very loose.
Yes. So the title from the book, right, is from William Butler Yeats' poem, Sailing to Byzantium. That is no country for old men, the young, in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their song. The salmon falls, the mackerel crowded seas, fish, flesh, or fowl, commend all summer long. Whatever is begotten, born, and dies, caught in that central music all neglect, monuments of unaging intellect. So that's where they derive the title from, The Country for Old Men. And that theme weighs heavy over the entire thing.
Yes, it does.
In many ways. But yeah, it's like we said, it's kind of one of the first actual direct adaptations. And I've never actually read the book. I have read some Cormac McCarthy. I read The Road, and he's not a happy writer.
Yeah.
This is not a happy movie.
No, it's not. It's not a happy movie.
But it seems like the book was an appropriate source material for them because it kind of covers a lot of the themes, even though in some ways it's a little atypical for them, but not completely. I mean, it definitely has some of the trademarks of blending genre and some absurdist humor, which normally happens after some ultra violence.
Yeah. And I mean, even though it is a direct adaptation, the Coen brothers still definitely put their spin on it.
The fingerprints are all over this. Yeah. And so I don't remember if we discussed it a lot with Big Lebowski, but they really have, I mean, they storyboard like everything down to the last detail of the movies. Like some directors let scenes develop as they are. They're very constrained in how they film their movies, which makes me kind of wonder about Big Lebowski, because Big Lebowski is a very meandering movie.
Yes, it is. To put it lightly.
It's like a tumbleweed. It's a tumbleweed.
Yes.
You don't know where it's going to go.
Yeah.
But the themes are kind of similar because you don't know where things are going to end up. Where they do, they do.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't expect the ending that this movie has.
Yeah, and this movie's also largely about fate, but you can definitely tell it's a very tightly controlled. I mean, they plotted everything out within this movie, and down to the details of this movie, like the costumes, wasn't dominated for costume design, and I get that because it's not the flashy costume, not period costumes. I mean, it was kind of period because this movie's it was made in 2007, takes place in 1980.
Yeah.
So, you get those flourishes. And I mean, the set design, it uses a lot of natural landscape, and I get that. But some of the other sets, just like a trailer and details in the trailer that are perfect.
Although there was one detail, though, that they got wrong. The MP5 that he takes off with the guy in the truck, that gun didn't come out till a few years later. So,
well, I also noticed there's a scene in a gas station, which is a famous scene. But I've seen this movie enough times, and you start looking in the background at other things, and there's Jack Link's beef jerky in the back, and it's definitely 2007 Jack Link's beef jerky.
Oh yeah,
or 2006. But not probably what their packaging would have looked like in 1980.
Probably not.
Which I get. It's a gas station, so they're going to have beef jerky.
Oh, yeah. I don't think I've ever been to a gas station that didn't have beef jerky in some form.
I'm not expecting them to necessarily find 30-year-old beef jerky.
I mean, they could have had the label recreated.
They could have. If this movie came out today, probably very easy to do that. Just get a 3D printer. There you go.
I mean, that's what they tend to do with old Doritos bags and stuff like that.
They do that, yes. So, yeah, there's a few small anachronisms like that. But, yeah, the set designs are great. I think this movie has so many actors in it that are basically in one scene.
Yeah.
They're pitch perfect.
Yes.
And we'll get into all of them. I mean, we've covered already, Tommy Lee Jones and Javier Bardem, but they also have Josh Brolin as one of the other main. Yeah. Kelly MacDonald is another main in this. Woody Harrelson, who's kind of a main in this, but
he's kind of
really, it's really only 3 scenes.
Yeah, he and then you got Stephen Root also, who's in a couple of scenes, and
yes. We'll get to the rest eventually, but I think the other 2 I wanted just to bring up briefly before that would be Tess Harper. He was interesting. He was in 1983's Tender Mercies, which won Robert Duvall an Oscar, and she wore the same cowboy boots in those 2 movies, and she wore the same ones for this because she thought, oh, I could be an older version of that character.
Huh. Interesting.
And then also, who I thought I really like him in this movie is Garrett Dillahunt.
I was going to mention him. Yes, I always love seeing Garrett Dillahunt. I've mentioned that before. I mentioned that in, I believe it was a Looper episode.
And I say Looper,
but yeah, I mean, it was very, very good to see him in this movie.
And I love his character in this movie. He's a great job in this. It's a smallish role, and like all the scenes are with Tommy Lee Jones, and he completely holds up to what Tommy Lee Jones is.
Yeah,
like. He's perfect. It's, really, really good. And one of my other favorites that's in this movie is Beth Grant.
Yes. I knew you were going to say her.
We'll get to Beth Grant.
Because if you weren't going to mention Beth Grant, I was going to mention Beth Grant.
We'll go more into Beth Grant later. Not as deep as the Lifeline exercise card. But we will get to Beth Grant in this movie.
Yeah.
One of my favorite character actresses there is.
Yeah,
she's in this.
She's great.
She's great in this.
She's really only in one scene in this, though.
Yeah, pretty much. 2 scenes, I guess. Right? She has a scene where she's like in the car, and then I guess it's really only one scene.
It's really because it starts in the car and it ends out of the car.
And it ends outside the car. Yeah. There's at one point where you like hear her voice on the phone, but that's it. Yeah, we'll get to her though. And we'll get to all the other little characters in this movie that I think are terrific. Interesting note on Garrett Dillahunt in this. He originally auditioned for the role of Llewellyn, played by Josh Brolin. He did not get that role, but they decided to cast him in another role. And then Llewellyn was also originally offered to Heath Ledger.
Huh.
But he turned it down to spend time with his daughter, which I guess allowed him time to be the Joker.
Yep.
Which he would win an Oscar the following year.
Yeah, but unfortunately he wouldn't be able to accept the Oscar.
Yeah. Sad stuff. We will do The Dark Knight.
Yes, we will.
We'll be doing Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, but that's for later. That's not for now.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know if I have any other kind of pre-notes on this to talk about.
Well, then.
Like I said, the other thing was, well, you know what? We'll get to it as we start the movie because I think it's perfect.
Okay.
To talk about as the movie starts.
Well, then let's get into it. As always, spoiler alert, we are going to be talking about this entire movie, beginning, middle, and end. So if you have not seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, then pause the podcast, watch the movie, then come back and listen. If you have seen the movie or you just don't mind spoilers, and keep on listening, but you have been warned, we are going to be spoiled.
Have been warned.
So we start out with a voiceover. Tommy Lee Jones is talking. He's talking about how back in the day.
Yeah, so back in the old ways.
Back in the old ways, many sheriffs didn't even bother carrying a gun.
I like when he says never wearing a gun. Like, he references several sheriffs, right? He's like, Jim Scarborough never carried one. I love the little detail. That's the younger Jim.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I love it.
Like we know who these people are. But it's so familiar. Like, he's just relaying this story. And he's like, and then he talks about, this one kid.
Yeah,
right?
So this criminal, murdered a kid, and then he wouldn't go along with his lawyer's explanation as to, why he murdered, like what they were trying to bring up in court.
It was straight up.
Defense.
He just wanted to kill somebody.
He just felt like killing somebody, and he told them
14 years old.
Yeah.
And he just killed his girlfriend for no other reason because he just wanted to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Right?
And,
okay. And, it's an interesting way of kind of bringing it all up, right? Because all we're getting right now is just shots of the
just
West
countryside
Texas landscape.
Yeah.
It's just the countryside, like a sun-banked prairie, right? It's just endless nothingness for the most part, right?
I mean, there was a fence in one shot.
Yes. Right? But yeah, so he's just talking about this, this kid's just cold-blooded killer. And he's like, it's like, he's like, no. He said he was going to go to hell.
Yep.
So he figured he just killed somebody. And, it's an interesting contrast, right? Because you're seeing this wilderness. And so what's interesting about this movie, we can call it kind of like a modern day Western, right? And it's one of the few Westerns to kind of win Best Picture. Unforgiven won, and way earlier is Cimarron won back in like 1931, 1932. I think that's a far more apt genre description. We talked about the Silence of the Lambs. Like it's more of a thriller.
Yeah.
It's not really a horror, right? And this blends genres a bit, but like at its root, it's like a Western.
Yeah.
And so when you kind of hearing this landscape, this narration over this landscape, you kind of think, well, sometimes you kind of think of like, kind of like these outlaws in the Old West that just would kill like indiscriminately, right? You think about harmonica, like in Once Upon a Time in the West, and you think about the Wild Bunch and all these rough characters, and now he's just talking about like, these sheriffs in these old Texas counties, like, didn't bother carrying a gun.
Yeah, because things were relatively safe back then, and they didn't run into the same problems that modern day sheriffs run into.
And that's like the next thing he says, like, well, the crime you see now, it's hard to take its measure. It's not that I'm afraid of it, right? He just straight up saying, like, I always knew I'd be willing to die to do this job, right? And then he just kind of says that, but I don't want to push my chips forward to go out and meet something I don't understand. And then he kind of finishes with this line, like, you can say that's my job to fight it, but I don't know what it is anymore, right? It's like this unknown kind of evil or unknown foe.
Yeah.
And what's funny about this is because this narration, as we'll discover, is, well, you can hear it, immediately it's Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah.
We don't see Tommy Lee Jones.
He has a very distinctive voice.
Narration. Yes. What's funny is that he actually never meets this foe.
No, he does not.
And it's crazy about this week is, we kind of talked about it, is that you got kind of your three leads in a way.
Yep.
And they mostly don't share any screen time. Tommy Lee Jones doesn't meet either one of the others.
Nope.
Doesn't meet Josh Brolin.
Well,
or Javier Bardem.
Technically, he briefly meets Josh Brolin, in a sense.
Yes.
They share some screen time.
He's in his trailer. He does go to his trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. He drinks his milk.
They do share a brief scene together. Spoiler alert. And even like, Josh, Brolin and Javier Bardem, like they have one kind of extended scene together, and then a phone conversation.
Yeah.
But they don't really interact a whole lot.
No, they don't.
So yeah, it's interesting in that it's not quite to the level of The Fifth Element, which we discussed recently.
Uh-huh.
Bruce Willis and Gary Oldman never meet each other, never talk to each other. They just miss each other in one scene. That's it.
Yeah.
It's similar to that. So here is one of the differences between the movie and the book. So we get a narration now, right? We don't get narration for the rest of the movie. Now the ending scene, you kind of get the conclusion in some ways.
Yeah, but that's not really narration.
He's speaking it to his wife.
Yeah, he's actually there speaking to his wife. Yeah.
But in the book, each chapter actually opens with his character's narration.
Okay.
So they cut that out. That's one of the major differences between the book and the movie.
Okay.
So, might as well just say right now. So, like, so his character, we haven't actually met him yet. We just hear him speaking to us. Is Ed Tom Bell. So the narration ends, and then we just get like a scene, right? There's a cop car, and he has you kind of see a deputy kind of taking this man into his car, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of puts him in, and then he puts this tank up front next to him, right?
Yeah,
and
like
they
it
drive off.
looks like an oxygen tank or something like that.
Oxygen
it's
tank,
just
which
a
is
metal
what the deputy is about
cylinder.
to describe. Right? So then that's the next scene. Like this movie takes no time to like get us into its horror.
Yeah, and the man he's putting in the back of
bluntly.
the police car is Javier Bardem.
Javier Bardem.
We
right?
don't know anything about his character yet, except just that he has this tank with him.
By the way, I love his haircut in this movie.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I put off some notes on this. I didn't print this off, so it's gonna take me a second to find it. But I think this is terrific.
Now, this is one of Javier Bardem's earlier American movies.
Yes. What's interesting about this is that he was a little bit opposed to taking the role because he doesn't really drive, he doesn't speak English well, and he doesn't like violence. and like
he does a lot of each of them in this movie.
And they're like, that's why they wanted him. So.
Yeah, 'cause before this, he'd done several Spanish movies and stuff like that before this. But
Yes.
another movie that we have done on this podcast that he was in was Collateral 3 years before
Collateral. Yes. Which is a very kind of like almost a cameo.
this. Yeah.
When he did that, it's like, oh wow, like how did they get Javier Bardem to do that role?
He wasn't a big name in America yet.
So they actually got the idea for the hairstyle from a book that Tommy Lee Jones had,
Really?
which had a 1979 photo of a man sitting in the bar of a brothel with a similar hairstyle and clothes similar to those that his character wears in the film. So the hairstylist Paul LeBlanc designed the hairdo. Now Paul LeBlanc, okay, he won the Oscar for along with I guess a makeup artist for Amadeus, but he's also the person that was responsible to do Princess Leia's hair in Return of the Jedi.
Huh.
So
All right.
while you were busy looking at her bikini in Jabba's lair, he was busy doing her hair, and you should pay attention to her hair because the same person that did her hair did Javier Bardem's hair in this movie.
Interesting. I still don't think anybody will ever notice her hair in that scene, but but good for him.
Anyway, so they get to the little sheriff's station, right? And the deputy, he's sitting at the desk, he's on the phone, he's talking to the sheriff, and Javier Bardem's in the background, he's kind of out of focus, and it's like, yeah, he pulled him in, and he had like this oxygen tank for those with like emphysema. That's how he kind of describes it. And this is a young deputy,
Yeah.
right? He has no idea what's coming.
No, he does not.
Yeah, I feel so bad for this character, like this
Yeah.
guy. And like again, so we talked about how Silence of the Lambs shies away from a lot of the actual violence.
Yeah.
This movie does not. It does not do it in a
It's
exploitive
not,
way.
Yeah, it's not gratuitous. It's not,
It's a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And so you can just see how in the background, right? He's just kind of like on the bench, right? And he's slowly, he's popping his shoulders out of joint so he can pop them down and step out under of the cuffs.
Uh-huh.
And then gets him back in, and then he starts as soon as the deputy hangs up on the phone when he says he has everything under control.
Yep. Then he strangles the deputy with the handcuffs.
And it's bad. Like it's really interesting watching. So it's focuses on their feet, and they're making skid marks on the linoleum, and then you see the cuffs just digging into his neck, and the blood starts squirting everywhere. And then you get like these pictures of the deputy's eyes, and then Anton Chigurh's eyes. We don't know his character's name yet. I like that they don't introduce his character's name until halfway
way
through the movie.
later. Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen Root's the one that says his name for the first time.
It makes him more terrifying that you.
Yeah.
Like he just shows up.
And
one of the ways they kind of imagined it is like, think about how, like, even if you think about like They like it. I think they like it kind of like in a Terminator. Like this killing machine just shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah, and he's very reminiscent of Terminator.
And
I mean, he's big and he's quiet, and he really only speaks when he needs to speak, when he has something to say.
Yeah.
Other than that, he just keeps his mouth shut and does his job.
Keeps going. And it just focuses on his eyes, and it's like you're trying to think like, is there enjoyment in this? What's going on? And it's finally like the life slips out of the deputy, and then he just like slowly exhales. Right?
Yeah.
It's done, and then it's just a simple shot that obviously he gets the key off the deputy, gets off the cuffs, and puts him in the sink that's in the bathroom there, and washes the blood off his hands.
Mm-hmm.
Takes the deputy's car, and he pulls over an old man.
Well, he grabs his tank first. And
He grabs his tank first. Yes.
Puts it in the deputy's car, and then
that is important.
Drives
he
up.
grabs the tank.
Yeah. Then he pulls over an old man.
Yeah, and the old man's like, "What's this about?" Because he's thinking like, I'm an old man. I'm not driving with the speed limit.
Yeah, and all he tells him is, get out of the car,
I paid
please.
my registration. I don't have a broken taillight. And he just says, "Step out of the car," and then he steps out of the car. Like, no. This guy's not wearing.
No, he's not wearing a uniform. He's carrying a air tank.
No. So again, we don't want to victim blame.
No. But
he could have just drove off.
Yeah.
I would be like, you know what? Fuck off. You're not chasing after me.
But yeah, so
but anyway, and he just asked him to stand still. And I love it because like it's this nice bright sky, and I remember they're just kind of smiling. And he puts his kind of head up to his head.
He puts his hand, he's clearly got something in his hand, and he's raising his hand up toward his forehead. And the guy's just standing there, just, you're gonna touch me on the forehead.
Are you E.T.?
But
ouch. He does get an ouch.
Sticks this thing in his hand just right up against the guy's forehead, hits a little switch on it, hits a little button, and it just
something.
All of a sudden, there's a hole in the guy's forehead,
like right between the middle,
between the eyes,
right in the middle between his eyes, right above his nose, and he falls back dead.
Yep.
Great.
And so then he gets in the car.
And then he gets juxtaposition
in that guy's car.
Yeah. Right. Which we will discover later.
Yeah.
Where he's roasting weenies on it.
Yeah.
He's not roasting weenies on it. Anyway. But yeah. So the next thing now is we introduce her Josh Brolin's character, Llewellyn Moss. Mm-hmm. And he's out hunting. It starts out in the crosshairs of his rifle. Yeah.
Right. He's hunting and
he's just out there, somewhere out there in Texas where he can just go out and hunt. And it's kind of it's an interesting juxtaposition because he will become the hunted.
Yeah.
So and he's hunting pronghorns, right?
Yeah.
So he's out there and he shoots, and I guess he
hits it.
Does he hit one of them?
He hits it.
Yeah.
But he doesn't hit it right where he's wanting to. He's trying to hit it right through the heart so it'll drop right there.
That's right, yeah. But he kind of hits
slightly
it
off. He hits it, and it runs off.
Right. So he kind of goes down to where this big pack of them were, right? And
so that he could try to find the blood trail and track it so that he could get it.
And, as he's kind of doing all that, he stumbles upon a scene of a shootout.
First, there's when he goes down to where the pronghorn was, he sees the blood, and then he sees other blood going off, and he looks over, and there's a pit bull that's sort of limping away.
That's right. That's what it is. The pit bull is what alerts him.
So then he, keeps on going, and he finds this scene,
and it's like a circle of about 4 or 5 trucks,
and just dead bodies everywhere.
There's dead bodies. There's more dead dogs, right? And he's kind of looking around, and then finally, he walks up he opens one of the truck doors, and there's still one guy in there.
Well, first he goes to the back of the truck, to the bed of the truck. It's got a tarp over it, and he lifts up the tarp, and it's just full of drugs.
Heroin.
It's just full of drugs. It's a truck
and then
bed
that's when he
full.
opens the door, and the driver that was in that seat, he's still alive. He's just saying agua.
Yeah.
Agua. because he's wounded, right?
Yeah.
And
He's
this is the
wounded,
middle
and
of like the Texas desert, and so he's obviously thirsty.
Yeah.
I love how Josh Brolin is just like, I ain't got no agua.
I ain't got no agua. Yeah. But the guy's got a like there are discarded guns and everything all over, and he's leaving them all until he sees this guy's got an MP5 in his truck cab with him, and so he takes that like right away, and then he's got a magazine in his pocket, so he's like real slowly, cautiously reaches in and just pulls it out of the guy's pocket. But yeah, he's asking for agua. He's like, I ain't got no agua. And he goes and he had taken a pistol off of one of the guys that was dead on the ground too.
He's 2 guns richer now.
Yeah.
And he realizes there's probably money somewhere. I want that money.
There's probably money somewhere. And he notices that there's no money there, so he figures somebody got away.
So he asks the guy, like, do you speak English?
Because this is clearly either a drug deal gone bad or some other cartel war or something like that. So there's most likely money involved, and he didn't see it anywhere. So he figures somebody got away.
Right. So he keeps talking to the dude, and the guy keeps just saying agua. So I told you, I ain't got no agua. And finally, just asks him, like, who was the last man? And the guy just keeps looking at him. He's like ultimo hombre, right? And the guy just isn't giving any answer, and so he just kind of leaves them, and then he finds some more blood, right? I think he finds some more blood, and
he finds some more blood and follows the trail,
and then he sees under this tree, because he's got binoculars, right? Because he's hunting, he has binoculars. That makes sense. It all tracks.
Yep.
And he just sees this guy kind of off in the distance behind this tree, just kind of sitting there. Which if you're in the desert and maybe you're wounded and you don't have a vehicle to escape in, right? They're gonna take shelter under a tree.
Yeah, in the shade.
And so then he's smart about this, right? He's gonna stand there. He's gonna not say. He's gonna get on his belly, and he looks at his watch. He looks at the time, and then he just kind of waits a while, and then he looks back to see if that guy has moved.
Yeah, and the guy hasn't moved. The guy's sort of slumped over, and he hasn't moved. Yeah. So he cautiously approaches him.
Yeah.
And it turns out the guy under the tree is dead.
He has succumbed to his injuries.
And there is a briefcase.
There's a satchel.
There's a big briefcase next to him.
Big briefcase. And it's full of money.
Yes. He opens it up, and it is full of money. Cash money.
Cash money. So, hey, that's a nice payday. At
Yes,
least he
it
thinks
is.
It's a nice payday.
Yes.
What luck that he had.
Takes that, goes back to his truck, drives home.
He lives in a trailer park. And this is one of the little details I love. Like, most of this movie was filmed in either like West Texas, parts of New Mexico. And then some of the border town scenes that we'll get later were filmed actually in Las Vegas. But this trailer park was a trailer park that exists like out in West Texas. Right? And it's just the little details of it. Like, it just feels like this little lived in trailer park.
Yeah, so before he goes inside, he kind of crawls underneath, pulls a panel aside, and hides the MP5 in there.
Panels. Yeah.
And then, closes it up, goes inside, carries the briefcase in with him. And his wife's inside sitting on the couch.
And she's watching TV. His
wife, Carla Jean, played by Kelly MacDonald.
Carla Jean, played by Kelly MacDonald. She's very good on this.
Yeah, she is.
Obviously, she's like, what's in the satchel?
And he's like, money. He's like, yeah, right.
I love their interaction. Yeah. It's so I feel bad about it. It's like it's so convincing, the two of them, and like this is actually like you get like 2 or 3 scenes with them actually together, and then they get kind of separated because of this money.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, she's like, yeah, and then she sees the pistol, and she's like, where did he get the pistol? He's like, at the Gittin place.
At the Gittin place.
And like he's back, she's sitting, you know how most trailers are, right? You walk in, that's like the main kind of living area. You get the kitchen on the far side and a bedroom on the other side, right? So he goes down the kitchen, he grabs a beer from the fridge while they're having this conversation, right? And he sits down, and then she just asks, like, okay, well, did he buy that gun?
Yeah. He's like, no.
He's like, no, I found it. And she just says, like, well, he's like, quit your hollering. All right, it's like, and they keep going. It's like, and she keeps talking, like, well, it's like, he just says, like, you keep running that mouth, I'm gonna take you back and screw you. It's like, and I love how the response, like, fine, I don't need to know. Right, and so it kind of ends, and then they go to bed. Right, and he can't sleep because all he's thinking about is this poor dude.
This poor dude who just wanted agua. So he decides that he's gonna go, and he gets a milk jug, and he fills it up with water.
Yep, and Kelly, Kelly McDonald,
Carla Jean.
Carla Jean, she wakes up from this, like, where you going?
It's like, right? I'm fixing to do something stupid.
And it was, well, here's the interesting thing. Okay. We can kind of talk about this maybe a little bit, but we could say it's stupid. Maybe it's not stupid, because if he doesn't do this, maybe there's really no movie at all.
Yeah. I mean, this is the, like, he could have gotten away scot-free if he didn't decide to try to take this man water, who clearly, just looking at the guy and his wounds, would not have survived this long.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah. And this is like the middle of the night, right? Obviously, because like he got home, it was kind of late. I go to bed. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning or something. So, and he just says, like, I forgot something to do, and I'll be back. Right. And I love how, like, before he leaves, like, if I don't come back, tell mother I love her. And then I love how she's like, your mother's dead, Llewellyn. And then, like, I'll tell her myself.
Well, I'll tell her myself.
That's like classic Coen brothers, like, dialogue right there.
Yeah.
So the next thing we cut back, he's back in his truck, and he's got a topographical map.
Yes.
I love how he's a topographical map.
Yeah.
And which makes sense. Maybe he uses it if he's hunting.
Yeah,
I can see why he has it. Yeah. If he's a big hunter out there, it can make sense. But he's trying to find exactly where he was, right? And so he goes out
back there, and parks a little bit farther away.
Yep. But now, like, he gets there, and he sees that the guy is dead,
and that he's been shot again, and there's a big, like, the window next to him it's got a big hole in it,
and the drugs are gone.
Yeah.
So people have been back.
Yeah.
Right. And then as he's doing this, because like his car is like kind of parked up on, like, this is kind of like down a small kind of valley area, and he's kind of up on a ridge right above it.
Yep.
Where his truck is. And so then he hears these voices, and he looks back up by his truck, and he sees someone slashing his tires. Right. And they were also like, and they were kind of a larger pickup. Right. And so they start driving down. Right? And so he needs to get a way out. And so he starts running.
Yeah, he starts running. They start shooting at him.
They have floodlights on the top of their truck, right?
Yeah.
And so they turn those on, and they're shooting at him. And he's running down. There's a river that's nearby, and he kind of runs down in the river.
Well, they hit him in the shoulder.
That's right.
They fire a shotgun at him, but he's far enough away that it doesn't really, it doesn't have maximum effect. So he just gets hit by the spread.
About getting hit by that, right? So it was not long after he got cast for the movie. He was on a motor. He rides a motorcycle. Josh Brolin rides a motorcycle, right? He gets in an accident, right?
Huh.
And as he's kind of sailing through the air, he was thinking, "This is great. I've always wanted to work with the Coens, and this is going to screw it up." But thankfully, like he wasn't injured seriously. Like he hurt his shoulder in it, right? But he wasn't, like killed, obviously.
Interesting. So that's why they wrote that in there.
A lot in the movie, but it's not why they wrote it in there. Actually, it ended up working out because early in the movie he gets shot in the shoulder.
So the fact that he injured his shoulder in real life actually helped his character in the movie. Okay. Interesting.
Right. So yeah, he gets shot and he gets down kind of into like the riverbed, and they have a pit bull, and the pit bull's chasing after him, right? And he gets the other side of the bank.
That pit bull is fast.
That's a fast pit bull. Yeah, he gets out, and like he still has the pistol that he stole from earlier, right? And he's getting out there, and he's trying to dry out everything.
Yeah, he pulls around out. He's blowing in the chamber, trying to dry it out, and and just as the pit bull's coming out of the water,
it leaps at him.
And he just barely gets the gun up, shoots the dog.
Pitbull did not survive that, obviously.
No, it didn't. I hate it when they shoot dogs in movies.
I know.
Even if it's a dog that's trying to rip his face off. I mean,
yeah, like you get it in this case, but you know what? Fuck those dudes who are using a pit bull like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's all I have to say about that. Yeah, that's their fault, not the dog's fault.
No.
But like I get it. Like he's protecting himself. He needs to protect himself.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the blame is on the other people for using the dog in such a manner.
Yes.
So he escapes, and he's like kind of walking off, and right, and eventually he realizes he's not far from like the highway, and he gets back, and he realizes he needs to get back kind of quickly.
Yeah.
Right. Because he realizes, well, they have his truck,
which means that they can find out where he lives.
So he gets home, right, and it's obviously he's been shot in the shoulder, and so he's doing what kind of first aid he can do for himself.
Yep.
But like he also realizes like he's going to do it. He's smart about this. And we realize later that this is 1980, so he's a Vietnam vet. So he's got experience in the military.
Yep.
Right. He's a welder now. So he does kind of his own basic first aid because again he realizes he probably really can't check into a hospital because that would be the next place to maybe look for him because they know they shot him.
Yeah.
It's like if they know his name. This is West Texas.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of hospitals. They'll find you kind of quickly.
Yeah.
He's fixed up his shoulder in the bathroom of his trailer home, and Carla Jean comes in, and talking again. And these are the little details I love about this movie and how the Coen brothers like get everything right. I think this is because I've seen this movie a lot, and so now I can kind of pay attention to even the smallest details. There's a little thing of Johnson and Johnson floss on their sink.
Yeah.
I thought that's perfect because, like, you know what? These are kind of like working class people. They don't have a lot of money, but they still care enough to floss their teeth.
Yes.
I don't know. I love that little detail.
See, you've seen this movie many times. This is only the second time I've seen it.
All right.
So and the first time I saw it was, like I think I mentioned last episode, I saw it was on TV, and I was watching it and sort of not super paying attention, but I was paying enough attention to, follow the movie. But yeah, so I was, I was trying to pay more attention to the, to the movie itself. I didn't really get to focus a lot on the background stuff this time through. So it's good that you did.
So I guess the next scene is now we get back to Anton, right? So we really don't even know how he's even connected to all of this at this point, right? He's going towards where he's connected.
Yes.
But he's just at a gas station in the middle of nowhere.
In this scene,
Texaco station.
This scene, it this scene, he shows how scary he can be.
He is.
Like, yeah, so he walks
this
in.
is where you get a character that's one scene. He's not played by Gene Jones, that most people probably don't know. I mean, he was in The Hateful Eight, right? But he's not in a lot of movies. He's just kind of he never really acted a whole lot of things. He's in this, and he owns this scene.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he plays the owner of the gas station.
He plays this thing well because, like you said, Anton is super scary in this scene. And you can tell he's scared, but he's not trying to show it.
Yeah.
Like, he's trying to be as stoic as possible.
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain point in this scene where he realizes this is, yeah.
I mean, he just tries to, he asks him, a couple of questions just to try to just
make small talk.
Make small talk. Just be friendly.
He owns a gas station in the middle of nowhere, West Texas.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm sure not a whole lot of people come in.
Because, I mean, you gotta understand, like, again, he's an older guy. Like, we find out kind of in the course of the conversation, he's retired. Right? So it's not like he needs it to be a successful business.
Yeah. But
right?
This whole thing, he asks him a question, and
he just asked him, like, how's the weather up your way?
Yeah.
Like, the first question is actually asked by Anton, right? Or Javier Bardem. He's like, how much do I owe you? How much? And he says, like, 69 cents. And he's got, like, a packet of, like, sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
A little bit of other mix in there. And then...
And he's like, and for the gas. And he never tells him how much he owes him for the gas.
He never tells him. This is interesting because, like, he only pays him 25 cents.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, but then, he's just, he's writing something kind of like on a little notebook, right? Or one of those small little notepads, not a notebook, a notepad. And that's when he asks, like, how's the weather up your way? Javier Bardem takes offense.
Yeah. And because he noticed the plates on the car.
It's like, oh, what way would that be? He's like, oh, I seen you over from Dallas. And then it's like, what business is it of yours where I'm from? Friendo.
Yeah, friendo. But yeah, he takes offense, and so nothing that the proprietor of the gas station can do, you can say, is gonna.
He's already in the hole.
Yeah.
And, like, he's getting mocked. He's like, I didn't mean nothing by it. And then he just says, I didn't mean nothing by it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this whole, like, back and forth, right?
And, like, this whole time, like, Javier Bardem is playing it to where, like, it just every second, the tension just gets thicker and thicker.
And, like, even the proprietor is like, I apologize if you want to accept that. I don't know what else I can do for you. And he just kind of stares at him, right? It's like, is there anything else? And then, Anton's like, I don't know. We're there.
Yeah.
And he just keeps like, something wrong? With what? And he's like, with anything. He's like, is something wrong with anything? Right? And, and then finally, just like, the driver's like, I need this to end. And he's like, it's about closing time.
Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah, because he was asking
the scene at the beginning.
He was asking him, when do you close? What time do you close?
It's like, about sundown or whatever.
Sundown's not a time. What time do you close?
Now, about
yeah,
whatever time he throws out there. But what's interesting about this movie, about this scene, when you look at it in the beginning, like, this sun's high in the sky.
Yeah,
it is not close to close.
It's like noon.
No, that's the thing. It's like a high noon standoff.
Yeah.
And, like, he's just trying to find a way to get out of this.
Yes. And so Anton pulls out a quarter.
He's like, it's like, you gotta call it. And he flips it.
He's calling it. He flips it and then puts it down on the table, on the counter and covers it with his hand. And he's like, call it. He's like, I don't want to call it.
Well, before that, he's like, he also asked him, what time do you go to bed?
Oh, yeah. That's right.
He's like, about 9:30.
He's like, do you live in that house over there? He's like, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I love it. He's like, it's like, well, this was my father-in-law's business. He's like, I love how that's like the one answer he doesn't expect.
Yeah.
He kind of chokes on what he's eating. He's like, you married into this?
You married into this?
It's like, no, we were from Temple, Texas. We moved here about 4 years ago. But yeah, it's about 9:30. It's like, it's like, I can come back then. Why would he come back then?
Why would you come back then?
Anyway,
yeah. So yeah, he flips the coin. Holds his hand over it on the counter, and he tells him to call it. And he's like, I don't want to.
It's like, you need to.
He's like, you need to.
And then he asks, and they ask the question. It's one of the famous lines in the movie. He's like, what's the most you've ever lost in a coin toss?
Yeah.
And what's interesting about this, here's another difference between the book and the movie, is the book, they changed the line a little bit. The book, the line is, what's the most you've ever seen lost in a coin toss? Okay. And they changed it because they just kind of thinking of being a visual medium, that they didn't need to say that, or have that line just like that. So they changed it slightly. Okay.
I think it works better with it.
I do. I agree
with it the way it is in the movie, at least in the course. I haven't read the book, so I don't know how the scene plays out in the book. But I think just the way that the scene plays out, I think the what's the most you've ever lost in a coin toss works better for the scene.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then he's like, "Do you know what year is written on this quarter?" And the guy's like, "No." He's like,
"No,
1958.
It's taken 22 years to get here, and here it is, and you've got to call it.
Yeah.
And I love how he's like, it's good. I mean, it's a good rebuttal. It's like, I need to know what I'm putting up here, what I stand to win.
And all he says is everything.
And you've been putting it up your whole life.
You've been putting it up your whole life.
And finally, he says, heads.
And Javier Bardem
picks up his hand,
and it's heads.
And he says, "Good job."
It's like, "Good job," and he hands him the quarter.
Pure luck.
Hands him the quarter.
He's put it in his pocket. It's like,
he's like, nope, don't put it in your pocket. Put it anywhere else, but not your pocket, because if you put it in your pocket, it'll get that's your lucky quarter. If you put it in your pocket, it'll get mixed in with all the other change, and you won't know which one it is.
And then it'll become just a coin.
And it'll become just a coin.
Which it is.
Yeah.
And then the scene ends.
But the whole time, this entire scene, you expect him to just kill the clerk.
You expect it. Yep.
You expect him to just kill. Just basically, either he didn't have his little air tank with him, so he wouldn't have been doing the thing with the driver of the car before. But you expect him to pull out a gun or something.
Yeah. But no, he survives. He's lucky.
He's lucky. Yeah.
He called the right one.
Yeah.
Maybe does he always call heads? Has he always called heads his entire life?
Maybe. See, what I want to know.
The last time, maybe he just alternates. He does heads or tails, and then this time he had to call heads because the last time he called tails for something.
What might have been interesting is if, like, say after Javier Bardem left, if the guy looked at the coin, it turned out it was a two-headed coin.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Why is one side all scratched out?
Aaron Eckert had not played them yet. It hadn't been Tommy Lee Jones.
Yep.
Now I want to do Batman Forever. I want to do Batman Forever.
Oh, we'll do it someday.
We have done Tim Burton's Batman.
Yes.
You can check that one out.
We're gonna do probably at least almost every Batman movie.
Yes.
If not every one of them at some point.
Anyhow.
But yeah, so I think that it might be interesting. I mean, it may just be dumb if that were the case, but I don't know. It might have made for an interesting little post scene, you know, if you looked at it and like, because then if he had said Tails, then, you know, he would have had no chance.
Yes. So anyway, so we kind of get through all of this. You know, we've had the scenes with Anton, we've had the scenes with Llewellyn, we've had the narration, and eventually we kind of get a shot back. Anton, he's driving in the dark, and he shows up kind of not far off the road, and there's these two well-dressed men. They're Mexican, and they're like, they tell him he's gonna ride bitch, and they drive off to the scene, right? And they see Llewellyn's truck there. This is after Llewellyn has gone back to the scene the second time, right?
After he's been chased off.
And so, like, he asked him, well, do you have, like, the transponder, right? So, kind of keys you in that there's probably a device there in the briefcase of all the money.
Yep.
That's a tracker.
Yep.
So, he kind of talks with the guys, and then he looks down. He asks politely for one of their guns.
Yeah. So the guy gives it to him.
And then he asks for a flashlight.
The guy gives it to him. And then, he crouches down. He's examining one of the dead bodies on the ground and stands up and just shoots both guys. So,
but he's got a device that can,
he's got the transponder.
Links to the tracking device, the transponder. So,
yeah. And he goes to the truck. He goes to Llewellyn's truck. Takes out his knife and pops the serial number, the VIN number off of it.
VIN number off. Yeah. All right.
So that he can go and find out whose truck it is.
So,
because whoever's truck that was may know where the money is.
You think? All right. So now we actually get introduced to Tommy Lee Jones, or Ed Tom Bell, right? He has a nice little house, right? Uh-huh. And he's talking with his wife, and he's asking her for her horse. Because there was a car they found on the side of the road that was on fire. And she's like, it was a car fire, right? He says, well, there's another scene. And so, and she's protective of a horse.
Yes.
So his wife is played by Tess Harper. And so, he drives off, and then he gets to the scene, and you see there's this car that's just kind of the fire on, it's like dying out. And his deputy is there, played by Garrett Dillahunt. And they just start having a nice, conversation about all this, right?
And they start talking about there was a man who was found dead on the side of the road, and his car was missing, and
that looks like that car.
The deputy's car was right there too, and he's like,
that looks like a 1977 Ford, don't you think? And yeah, I think so. I bet your money on that. I like how they established this stuff, right? We talked earlier about how the earlier deputy was out of his league.
Yeah.
Right. And both of these guys, in some ways, could easily be out of the league against Anton. But they also they're intelligent. They're smart.
Yeah.
Like Tommy Lee Jones, you completely tell. He's a smart guy.
Oh yeah.
He knows, he knows how to investigate things. And Garrett Dillahunt, his character is
there's
also.
There's a reason he's the sheriff. You can tell he's been doing this for years.
And Wendell, who's Garrett Dillahunt, who's his deputy, you could see, what? You could see him being the guy that could succeed.
Yeah.
Ed Tom Bell.
Yeah, he's not your typical deputy. He is definitely it seems like he's sort of been groomed into the role. The protege is a good word. Yeah, he's Tommy Lee Jones' protege.
I just love some of the dialogue they have together. It's like this is where you kind of get some of the Coen humor, right? He just looks like Tommy Lee Jones looks at the car's like, I wouldn't think a car would burn like that.
Yeah.
And Wonder's like, I should have brought the Wheaties. And then, like, Ed Tom Bell, he just kind of goes through the progressions. Like, all right, he kills. He mentions the sheriff's name that for the deputy, right?
The deputy's name.
Here's someone's deputy, right? Steals his car, kills that guy by the side of the road, takes his car, and here we are, right? And Wonder's like, that's very linear.
Yeah.
Right? And so then they take the horses, they go off the next scene.
They ride down and they find
Wendell's
the
like,
scene of...
you're giving me your wife's horse? It's like, if anything happens to that horse, I don't want to be the one responsible.
Yeah.
So you're riding it.
So they're riding down. They come across the scene, the circle of trucks.
And like right away, he also sees Llewellyn's truck.
Yes,
He's like,
Llewellyn's
I know
truck.
this truck belongs to a guy named Moss. And then one was like, oh, Llewellyn Moss? Like, that's right. And they were like, they look at it. It's like, do you think he would be? They could tell right away it's a drug deal. Looking at it, right? Gone bad, right? He's like, you think figure him for a drug runner? Like, I wouldn't be surprised by anything, but I don't think so. And they look at it. It's like, okay, yeah, well, this is they go to do the exchange. Whoa, differences.
Yep.
And they look at it, and it's smart, and he's looking around the ammo, and he's like, and he's doing a good job of figuring it all out. And even one was like, you know what? I think we have two crimes here.
Yeah, because there's all these guys that shot each other over the drugs, and then these two were executions. Yeah,
yeah.
These two were execution style. So
yeah,
like I think we have two different crimes here.
Right, and so it kind of ends with that, and then we get back to the trailer park. You got Anton, and he uses his little thing that he killed the old man by the side of the road to punch out the lock.
Punch out the lock in the door, and
he walks in.
It flies.
Says,
the lock. The whole. No, this is not Raising Arizona. Although we will do Raising Arizona someday, I'm sure. But and I'll probably repeat this story in that episode. But yeah, after seeing that, because watching it with you was the first time I had ever seen it, and so after that, the next few apartments that I lived in, before I moved out, like my last day there at each of those apartments, I would take a shower in the morning. Like I normally do, and when the steam would fog up the mirror, I would write "fart" on the mirror with my finger for the next people that lived there, so that after their first shower.
Anyway, it does not say fart.
No, but the lock does fly off of the door, and it hits the wall, and it makes
the wall. Makes because it's cheap panel.
Makes a little dent in the wall.
Home, right? And he looks around.
Nobody's there.
He finds a copy of the phone bill because he wants to see who he is calling frequently or receiving calls from frequently.
Yep.
And then he goes into his fridge and steals his a jar of milk.
Yes, and he goes and sits on the couch.
On the couch, he drinks some milk.
Holds the milk. It doesn't show him drinking the milk. It just shows him holding the milk.
It shows him holding the milk.
There's the TV that's turned off, and you get a shot from his point of view at the TV, and you see the reflection of his silhouette with the window right behind him.
Yes. And I love the next scene because he stays there and he's like, you know what? I'm going to go to the office, which almost ended badly.
Yeah.
It was ended badly.
Yeah, for the...
If we're going to talk about characters with a single scene in this movie, that lady, I bring up her name.
Yeah.
He just goes in. He's asking, "I'm looking for Llewellyn Moss." It's like, well, is he in this trailer? He's like, no. It's like, I reckon he's away.
Yeah, I reckon he's away.
And it's like, then he's just, it's like, well, where does he work? It's like, we cannot give out no information about our
residents.
And then he asks you again, like, where does he live? I mean, where does he work? He's like, did you not hear me? We can give out no information. Kathy Lampkin is her name. It's the actress.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
and I love
Desert Air Manager.
And then he's about to look again. And he walks away, and he goes back, and she's fine. I love it. She's filing her nails while all of this.
Yeah.
And you feel like he's about to like maybe do the same thing with her. And he thinks secondly because he looks at her and realizes that no, if I mess with her, she's gonna shove that nail file so far up my butt.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what's going through his head right before that nail file does.
I would not mess with that lady.
No,
she's the one person in this movie that could take Anton down by herself, just willingly.
Yeah. And by the way, we didn't mention this when we were talking about it before, but the guy in the truck that was asking for agua, Eduardo Antonio Garcia, he IMDb has him listed as Agua Man.
Of course, because that's his line in the movie. Agua. Oh yeah, she was on Wikipedia here, but anyway. So he leaves, and then that's when Wendell and Ed Tom they come on by, and they go in, and they look cool. They see right away a lock has been shot out. So you know what? They get their they get ready. They have their hands on their guns. Yep. They come in slowly,
and Wendell goes to check the bedroom area on that side of the trailer, and Ed is checking the living room and the kitchen.
And then there's no one there. So then Ed, he looks at the milk. He sits down and
first he sees the dent in the wall from the lock, he sees the deadbolt sitting on the couch,
on the
right
floor,
under
wherever it landed.
It was on the couch right under where it hit the wall. And so he thinks that's interesting that somehow the lock got
blowing out,
launched into the trailer.
Yeah.
And so he goes into the kitchen. He gets in the cupboard, grabs a glass.
Once he knows that there's no one in there, he grabs a glass. He sits down and he pours himself some milk.
Because he notices that the milk is still cold.
Yes.
So whoever was in there was just in there.
We just missed him. And of course, I get it. Like the obvious is like we gotta put out something. It's like, what are we gonna do? It's like
arrest him for drinking some milk.
And like there's nothing you can do. Like they don't know what he looks like, right?
I mean, they could look for somebody with a milk mustache.
And we forgot to mention in like all of this, there was a scene kind of in the middle there where there was where Llewellyn sends Carla Jean off to her mother.
Yes, that was after. Yeah, that was after he came back.
Like, yeah,
from,
he was on
getting shot at.
To put on like a bus to go after the mother. It's like it's like she's like, I work at Walmart. He's like, not anymore. Right? He's like, what do I tell Mama? She's like, and the usual stuff. So, and I think also the other thing to bring up on this, because since we're talking about two separate parties that were going after the drugs and the money, is that the management that Anton kills were not the people that slashed the tires on Llewellyn's truck. So the guys that chased him or that's a different group than the group associated with Anton. I was just thinking about. I just remember that part, like, because he asked us specifically who slashed the tires, right? Because we saw the tires get slashed.
Yeah,
and he asked that question.
Yeah, so it must have been whichever side had the pit bulls, because there was the one dead pit bull at the scene, and then the one limping away. So they must have been on the side opposite of the side Anton was on.
Right. So the next scene, I guess, is that where I think we get back to Llewellyn.
Yeah.
And let me just look at this real quick. I had the screenplay up, but all right. So yeah, I think he gets back to Llewellyn, and wants to check into a hotel. But let me. All right. Actually, even before we get to the next scene, I think it's important to talk about like how both Ed and Wendell automatically know like whoever Llewellyn is mixed up with is a bad sons of bitches.
Yeah. And they also mentioned, they talked earlier about the guy who was killed at the side of the road.
Oh yes.
How it appears that he was shot in the forehead, but there was no bullet. So
there's no bullet.
So Wendell's like, so you mean this guy shot him and then dug around his head with a pocket knife to pull the bullet out?
Yeah.
He's like, no, I think it's something else. It's something, that we don't quite know what it is yet, but it's something, that.
Right. And they never actually, it's funny, like the movie they never actually say it themselves. Like Ed will later kind of tell you what it is.
Yeah.
But they never really figure it out themselves.
No. Because he's relaying information later, and it just comes up that this thing that he's describing, that's exactly what Anton's using.
Yes.
And he kind of stops and thinks about it for a second. It's like, huh.
But I like the last thing, like as it leaves that shot in the trailer, is how one was like, yeah, I think this boy Moss has any idea about the sons of bitches that are hunting him. And Bill's like, I don't know, but he ought to. Like, the things I've seen, they left an impression on me.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then it cuts in. That's when he's going around, and now he wants to go to a cheap motel. Right. And he finds a cheap motel, right? And he's talking with the desk clerk lady, right? He asks her for a map, and she's like, "We got a sort of map," right? And he doesn't really care where he is. Like he wants, but
no. Well, first first he gets the room. He doesn't go for the map until later.
That's right, because he wants to see. You're right.
Because he's in the room, and he's got the briefcase. He takes a few bills out of it and closes it up.
He needs to pay for things.
Yep.
Makes sense.
And then he sees that the vent looks like it's about the right size for the briefcase. So
it's convenient, isn't it?
It is very convenient.
Most vents are not that big.
No, they are not. So he, takes the cover off the vent, and he sticks the briefcase up in there, then gets the rod from the closet and pushes the briefcase cuts one of the pull strings off the window curtains, off the blinds, and ties it around the handle to the briefcase. Uses the closet rod to push the briefcase back into the vent and then over to where it angles off, to sort of hide it in the vent. And he's got the string there so that he can grab it and pull it back out when he needs to.
Yes.
And then puts the cover back on the vent. And then goes out and buys some boots.
I love buying the boots.
And then when he gets back to the motel is when he goes in. And
which we don't get to that yet. Right, because we get back to Anton's hunting.
Yeah.
Right, because he found a number that was, called a lot and received a lot of calls, and this is where we get our favorite Beth Grant on the phone with Anton with Javier Bardem.
Yep.
It's like, is Llewellyn there? And she's like, why would Llewellyn be here? It's like. And so basically, yeah, he hangs up, and then actually, I think that's then we had the scene where Moss, Llewellyn, he's at a shop, right, and it's kind of like a clothing store, sporting goods store there in the middle of Texas where you can buy hats. You can buy cowboy boots. You can buy camping gear.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy guns, whatever it is, right? It's like a Bass Pro Shop or a Cabela's, but it's like a locally owned thing. It's not as large as those, obviously, but
so
it does the job.
He gets the boots, then he goes back. He he buys a shotgun, and then he asks the guy, "Do you sell any tent poles?" He's like, "Why would you want a tent pole without the tent?" It's like, "Do you have them or not?" He's like, "Well, no, but I mean,
you can buy a tent."
He's like, "I've got a tent. I've got a tent. I don't have poles. I need the poles." It's like, "We don't have poles. Why would you need poles without a tent, without buying a tent?" He's like, "Give me a tent then." I want a tent. He's like, "What kind of tent?" "The kind with poles."
Again, that's really like a classic Coen dialogue. The guy with poles. Josh Brolin, oh my, we haven't really talked about it. He is really good in this also.
Yeah.
Right. And then I love how besides that, he also wants to buy socks.
Yeah.
You sell socks? Only in white. That's all I wear.
That's the only socks I wear.
But one of the aspects of this I like a lot, it's again, we kind of describe the store. So, Silence of the Lambs, we had Lecter, wearing a Panama hat at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Casablanca was featured a lot of fezzes.
Uh-huh. And even a Panama hat.
One Panama hat.
Complete with monocle.
And this movie has a wall just full of Stetsons.
Yep.
And there's a lot of Stetsons in this movie.
There are a lot of Stetsons in this movie.
Both on heads and also on the wall. And I love the image of just an entire wall of Stetsons.
Yep.
So, yes, again, the little details like that help make movies sometimes.
And for most of the movie, Llewellyn is wearing a Stetson.
Yes, he is. Anton is not wearing a Stetson.
No, he's not.
He's got his own glorious locks.
Yep.
But anyhow, so yeah. So they go through, and he gets back, and then he sees that there is a truck in front of the room that he's rented from not rented, or that he's he's going to be in for the night.
Room 138. And so he goes into the office, and he asks if they have a map of the rooms. And so the clerk pulls out the map and shows him, and he's looking, and he's like, "I need another room." And he sees room 38 is the room just behind room 138.
Yeah.
So he's like, "I want room 38." He's like, "Okay, do you want me to switch you over from your room now to room 38?" He's like, No, I want to keep both rooms. I want to keep the room that I'm currently in. I just need this other room too.
Yeah. I was like, "You want to change rooms?" I love how he's like, "Well, you got a map." And it's like, that's got 2 double beds.
Yeah.
Like, you're one person.
Because earlier she asked him what kind of room he wanted, what kind of bed. He's like 4
options or whatever. He's like, "I'm just one person.
I'm just one person. I
only need one bed."
Yeah, he's like, "But that's got 2 double beds." He's like, "I don't care. I want it." So then he goes into his new room.
So he goes to his new room. Meanwhile, we've had Anton. He's been driving around. He's got the transponder next to him. right? And he's just waiting for it to start pinging.
Yep.
Right? And he's driving around. And he drives by the motel.
And it starts pinging.
Beeping. So he drives through the parking lot. He drives around. And, he kind of pulls up, because it's a motel where he had the spaces right in front of it. And he's just driving right in front of them. And then
meanwhile,
he finds...
Before that, though, before it shows him driving and the transponder pinging, then we have Llewellyn in his new room sawing off the barrel of the shotgun.
Yes.
And he's turning it into a sawed off, sawing the barrel off, sawing the stock off. And then he takes the tent poles and he puts them together, grabs all the hangers out of the closet, cuts them up so there's just the hooks on them, and hooks all those.
Yep, he's got some duct tape.
Duct tapes the hooks
from one of the hooks of the.
Well, a bunch
hanger.
of the hooks together because it's stronger if there's more than one hanger's worth of hooks. So he duct tapes them all to the end of the tent poles.
He wants to hook the handle of the briefcase.
Yeah. So
he's doing that.
Then while he's doing this is when we get Anton driving up, and it's sort of cutting back and forth between the two.
And he kind of finds basically the room where he needs to be.
Yeah, room 138.
Where he figures that the money is. Right? Now, what's important about this is that, again, we said that there's rooms on either side, and it's a motel. So the original room that Llewellyn takes is on the front side on the road.
Yeah.
Thankfully for him, that's the one he got, right? Because, if it's on the back side, that if he took anyway.
Yeah.
So
the new room that he got is on the back side of the motel, directly behind his original room. Behind it.
So Anton figures out, well, I need to figure out what this room might look like. And so he goes into the lobby. Yeah. You just see him staring
at the same map that Llewellyn was just looking at.
And he rents a room. And, he goes in to it, right? And he just kind of explores what the room looks like.
Uh-huh.
And then you just kind of see him. He takes off his shoes. He's just in his socks.
Yep.
He's got his air tank. And I just love it. He's just walking silently down the sidewalk area of this motel. Okay, so this didn't mention this yet. One of the things I love about this movie is that there's almost no music in this movie.
Yeah.
There's minimal score, and when it is in it, it's very much in the background.
Yes.
It just adds to like the realism of it.
Yes.
And it just increases the tension because like sometimes like the score will like cue into like when it's gonna like get excited. Like no, it's silent. It just keeps you on edge.
That's
the entire time.
Part of what makes Anton's scenes so creepy.
Yeah. So, because I mean, here you go. You just see first. You just see his feet. You see it just his entire self, and he's just kind of walking slowly. And because he doesn't have his shoes on, he just has socks.
He's not making any noise. Right? You don't hear his footsteps.
Any noise. And then he gets by the door. He
pops the
shoots
lock
open
out.
The lock again, and then just immediately just blows away this dude that's in the bed.
Yeah.
And there's a guy in the closet and blows him away.
Yeah, because he's got a shotgun, right? He's got a shotgun with a big silencer on it.
Yes. And the other guy that's in the closet. Like he's got like a machine gun, and when he gets shot, he pulls the trigger on it, and it starts spraying bullets. And that's when they then cut back to
Llewellyn, who hears
this. He's like, "What?" And so then he keeps working on it.
Because he's trying to get the briefcase out of the vent with his new hook pole, and
he stops, he pauses, and he's looking around, and he keeps going at what he's doing, and then
there's another guy in the bathroom though.
The bathroom, so there's right? He goes in the bathroom. He decides,
you
know what? I'm gonna go in the bathroom and see what's gonna happen. And he sees in the mirror like this guy, his arm just kind of slips behind the shower curtain.
Uh huh.
And then he walks silently over the shower curtain pulls
Shuts
it
it.
away. And another guy, and, he's a Mexican guy, right? And he just starts speaking to him in Spanish.
Yep.
And he puts the
shotgun up
back,
with the shotgun in there, and then he pulls the trigger. You just see blood splatter on the other side of the shower curtain.
That's it. And then he sits down.
So,
he takes off his socks.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
So, what I don't quite understand is where'd these three guys come from?
Yeah. Like, where did they come from? And because he paid for this in cash, like, were they trailing him the entire time?
They could have been. I mean, they had guns. So, I mean, it's likely that they were, coming after the money.
Okay.
But
so
how did they know where he was?
All right.
And
so this is the best I can formulate. So we talked about how you had the two sides, and the one side slashed the tires with the pit bulls. They probably found Llewellyn's information first, and they are more ready for him, and they just started following him.
Could be.
Would be my best guess.
Could be.
So that's my best guess.
But also, why was the one guy just chilling on the bed?
Hey, they had Skinamax.
I don't know. It's a cheap motel, so I don't know if they did have Skinamax.
hey, it's the 80s. You get the blurry line.
They had scrambled Skinamax.
But his pants are on. Anyway.
Yeah, so the other two looked more like they were, waiting at the ready. And he's just chilling on the bed. He's kicked back,
Oh, wait. I just found this part in the screenplay. It's like he punches out the lock cylinder with the air gun and kicks in the door and raises the shotgun. Mexican reclining on one of the two double beds. He scrambles for a machine pistol and nightstand. Anyway. Right. But yeah, so then like after he kills everybody, he's just kind of sitting in the bed. He's looking around, It's like, okay, well, obviously none of them are Llewellyn Moss.
Yeah. So, but by this time, Llewellyn has gotten the briefcase out of the vent.
Yep.
And he's gone.
Yep.
So
he's just sitting on the bed now, and he takes off his socks because they're drenched in blood. Right. And then, he looks around and he looks up and he sees the air duct. Right. And he figures, right? He wonders if he put it in there. Right. And obviously there's no briefcase because,
Llewellyn already got
Llewellyn's
it
had enough time to take it out and bring it out. So, yep. And he plays back on the, he looks back at the transponder because he's been busy being murdering people.
Yeah.
And he hasn't looked at that, and it's not really beeping anymore. It's a slight. I think it's like a slight beep or something like that, right? Because it's kind of close, but not that close.
Yeah,
it's moving away, and that is what it is. So now we have a brief scene of Llewellyn in a car, and there's a driver. He's a black driver. He's like, even a man like you shouldn't be hitchhiking. Right. And he's just hugging the briefcase.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah. And then we cut to a building, a skyscraper.
Yes.
Right?
A skyscraper.
And there's an elevator kind of going up it. And there's Woody Harrelson. Like, where did he come from?
Harrelson just shows up in this movie.
Stephen Root.
And Stephen Root. So Woody Harrelson gets out of the elevator, walks into an office with a big window, and Stephen Root is sitting at a desk in front of the window. And Woody Harrelson walks in, and Stephen Root
sits down.
Well,
He's
first
got his
off,
Stetson on.
he asks him, Stephen Root asked Woody Harrelson if he's ever met Anton Chigurh.
By sight. Yeah, it's like,
and he said,
I can remember. Last time I saw him was November 28th.
November 28th of last year. And then just sits down.
It's like, did I ask you to sit? It's like, you strike me as a man that wouldn't want to waste a chair.
Yeah, I love that. Another Coen Brothers. Another Coen Brothers line.
And he's like, I remember dates, names, and numbers. I saw him on November 28th. And of course, he should remember dates, names, and numbers because he is a bounty hunter himself.
Yes. Yes, he is.
He's also a day trader.
Yep.
That's a good cover. Anyway. But yeah, it's like...
Woody Harrelson plays Carson Wells.
Carson Wells, yes.
And Stephen
Root is just plays, like, he's just man.
IMDb has him listed as man who hires Wells.
Yes, man who hires Wells. Yes, that's who I have. Wikipedia shows him as that. I'm looking at the screenplay. Screenplay just lists him as man. He's not man.
No.
He doesn't. He can't eradicate estrogen. He doesn't use Ghost as a weapon.
Just the hairstyle from Ghost.
But I love how he says, like, we got a loose cannon here. We're out a bunch of money. The other party is out of his product. Like, Wells, like, I understand. And, then he gives him man who hires Wells, gives him an ATM card. It's like, this will give you $1,200 in any 24-hour period. It's like, that's up from $1,000. Like, that means they mean business. We're giving you a lot of extra money. We're giving you a few hundred extra dollars. Right. It's like, if expenses run higher, I hope you trust us for us. And finally, the chase. How well do you know Chigurh? Was like, well enough. Like, that's not an answer. I love that line. Like, that's not an answer. Like, it's what, like, that's what Chigurh said. Like, now's not a time.
And so this scene is the first time in the movie that we hear Anton Chigurh's name.
Yes, it is. I love how basically the first question, like generalization about him is like, man who hires Wells asking, like, well, how dangerous is he? Of course, it's just like, compared to what? The bubonic plague?
Yeah.
That's the comparison. He just jumps to the bubonic plague.
Black Death.
The Black Death.
Wiped out half of Europe.
It's like, he's bad enough that he called me, which kind of like shows you like how well respected he is. Which is kind of funny because like he gets, spoiler alert, he gets taken out kind of easily.
Yeah, very easily.
But I love how he's like, he's a psychopathic killer. But so what? There's plenty of them.
Yeah.
Right? Man who hires him is like, oh, he killed those 3 men in the hotel in Del Rio yesterday. And 2 others in that colossal goat fuck. Right? And so they continue talking. And finally, Wells is about to leave. And he has one last question. It's like, can you validate my parking? So it leaves him. Right?
And then we don't really see Woody Harrelson for a little while.
We get back to Llewellyn, and now he's at Eagle Pass. Right? That's a border town. It's a border town where he is. He's in a motel, or really this
time it's a hotel.
It's
the first one was a motel. This is a hotel, but it's a cheap hotel. And he's in there. He's in his room. Shuts the door, locks it, and he's trying to figure out how.
I want to bring this up because he asked the clerk if he's going to be on all night.
Oh yes,
and he says yes, and like he asked him I gotta find his name too. So, he pays him extra money to tell him if anyone comes looking for him. He's like, any swinging dick is what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
At first, he seems kind of like reluctant, but finally he decides to take it. Right? This is called the Hotel Eagle.
Mark Miles.
Mark Miles
Played the Hotel Eagle.
And we have done the movie with Mark Miles before.
Yes.
He was the sheriff in Last Crusade.
Yes, he was.
I brought the sheriff. Anyway, so Mark Miles, the clerk, he he decides, I want a little extra cash. So he takes it, and then we just get a shot. The next shot is basically just Llewellyn up in his room.
And he's trying to figure out how Anton knew where he was.
Yeah, because he's got to keep driving around.
Yeah.
Again, he's using cash. He's not using credit. He's not using plastic.
Yeah. He's not leaving a paper trail. But he pulls out the briefcase, and he figures there might be something in there. So he starts feeling around in there. Doesn't feel anything, so he starts pulling out, stacks of money from it and flipping through it. And in one of them, he notices there's a little plastic rectangle, or a little metal rectangle in there. Right in the middle of the bundle.
He starts looking because he just starts realizing, like, wait. He kind of has that question, like, okay, how was this found? And he realizes, like, well, is there something in here that's, like, tipping them off?
Yeah.
Right?
So he finds the tracker. And it turns out that one of the stacks of cash, the bills in the center of it, had just like, when people hide something in a book, they'll cut the outline out from the pages. But in this case, it's, they cut little rectangles out of a bunch of the bills, stuck the tracker in there.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, it hasn't gotten deep because, like, it's like all hundreds up top, right? And then he gets down like it's just ones.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, that would have pissed some people off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They discovered that. Like, count it.
Yeah.
Always count the money they're giving you. They're trying to rip you off. Have someone out on your flank that's ready to blow away some motherfuckers.
Yes.
Because they give you ones instead of hundreds. Anyway. So, yeah, he discovers it, and, he sees the beep, and then, like, he kind of hears, like, a soft thud. Right? And, like, now he's getting ready. Like, he gets a shotgun, and he turns off the light in his room. Right? And he just starts listening, right? And, like, I love this scene because, like, again, there's no score.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just piling up the tension about what's going to happen.
Yeah, so he grabs a shotgun, and he's just holding it. He's just sitting on the bed, facing the door.
Right?
Holding it. And
as the shadow comes in, he's looking under the crack in the door.
Uh-huh.
At the bottom.
Sees the shadow of feet.
The shadow. It moves away.
Yep.
And then it comes back. And then he gets hit in the chest.
Yeah, by the lock.
By the lock. And then he fires himself after he recovers a bit because he gets obviously that's going to stun you.
Yeah,
he's expecting the door to open. He's not expecting
the lock to shoot at him. So he fires, and he buys himself a couple of seconds, and he goes out the window. Takes the briefcase with him and starts running. Then he starts getting shot at.
Yes. And he gets back through because then he goes back through the lobby and he sees when he goes in, there's a cat that was drinking milk from a saucer. The saucer gets turned over and you kind of just see some feet through the back, like kind of the little office area behind, like the front desk. And
the front desk clerk's not at the front desk.
Yep. And you're thinking, oh, that's the sheriff from Last Crusade. He has died. No, this is when it kind of gets real, right? Because okay, so I guess I should say this doesn't get real because like earlier in the movie you had like innocent people dead, and now you have innocent people dying because of the actions of like Boss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like that clerk was just there, and he's being, he just got taken out because
if he hadn't gone back to take Aquaman the water, then there's a chance he could have gotten away with it. I mean, because the tracker was in the briefcase, but he would have eventually found it. When they
would have known who he was though, like because like they would never discover
his truck wouldn't have been there.
Yep. He would have just gone away because he eventually would have gotten down to that. He would have used all the hundreds and discovered a bunch of ones, and he would have been pissed.
Yep, and he would have found the tracker, eventually, and gotten rid of it, and would have been able to get away with a briefcase full of singles.
That's right.
He would have been able to go have a great night at a strip club.
Anyway, he gets back to like the alley in the back of it, right? And he kind of runs through, and now he kind of emerges on the other side of the street, and there's a truck that comes up. Oh my! Talk about like we just talking about like fate, and we talk about the wrong people being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So there's this guy, and he that's driving the truck. He's like, "I'm not going to hurt you." He gets in the car, and they start driving, and then there's a shot, and then there's blood just starts spewing from the guy's neck.
Yeah,
he just gets shot
straight
to the neck, and then he just gets a headshot.
Mm-hmm.
And then he sees that the shot's coming from like the end of the street, and the one's trying to control the truck.
Yeah, he sort of reaches over, it hits the gas. Like from the passenger side, he reaches his leg over, he hits the gas, and he's sort of steering from the passenger side, trying to keep his head down so he doesn't get shot, and wrecks the truck. He gets out, and he's been hit at this point.
Yeah, he's been hit again.
And so he
gets out of the car, and he has to get across the street. He hides kind of behind another car, and he's just kind of waiting there, and like all of a sudden, like he sees like Anton is kind of coming again. And just he's going, he sees Anton going towards the pickup that he was just in.
Yeah.
Right. And then Anton kind of sees that, okay, no, like he's not in there. It's just the driver. Right. And he sees this little blood trail just going away.
Mm-hmm.
And he turns around, and then that's when Llewellyn's able to shoot him. Or shoot at him. And he does hit him. Right. And it kind of just ends their small little standoff. And this is the one actual scene they're in together.
Yeah.
They will talk later on the phone, but this is the one scene
that they actually share a scene. They share screen time.
Right? So, of course, now he's been hit. Like he gets kind of hit like in the belly. Right? Mm-hmm. It seems like he like misses like major organs, but he's still been shot in the gut.
Yeah.
Which is not good. So, right again, this is a border town, right? And so he decides, what? I can't go to a hospital here in the States. Look at that, go to the one in Mexico.
Yep.
So these are the scenes that are filmed in Vegas.
First he buys a shirt off of a kid.
Well, that's the thing. He's crossing the border, right? And he kind of looks over. He figures like, I need to get rid of this briefcase, so he's gonna kind of throw it over the fence between the border, right? Because you have the U.S. border and then the Mexican border, right? And obviously he's not checking in with the U.S. border at this point.
Yep.
He checks in on the other end of the border, Mexico. So he kind of throws it over, right? And then there's some like college kids or they're American, right? And they're crossing back from Mexico to the States. Where it's, and they look at him like, have you been shot? he just wants to buy a shirt off one of them, right?
Yeah, which is not the last time that somebody offers to buy a shirt off a kid in this movie.
No, it's not. It's really interesting. Some of the similarities in here that are, it's kind of I should say subtle, but it's not subtle. But it's not like you don't think about it right away until it's well done. The terrific writers, and filmmakers.
Yeah, so he buys a shirt off the kid
And
for $100.
he shows him money. And it's blood stained, right? And and they want him to show the money first, right? And they hand him the money, like, don't touch the money. Right? Hey, if some people had touched all the money earlier. Anyway, so they give him the shirt, and then he sees they have a beer. He's like,
yeah, give me the beer too.
Can I have that beer?
How much?
How much? But I love how there's the one kid's like, it's like, oh my, no, he's been shot. It's three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the two of them are serious. The other guy's like he's been shot. And then he's the one's like, no, just give him the beer for free. And so he crosses out, I love how he's got the beer and he crosses over the Mexican side, and then the Mexican guard's he's just sleeping. He's not really sleeping. He's just kind of nodding off, and he just raises the beer to him and nods his head. Just passes through the border. And for me, this is one of the funniest scenes of the movie, because he goes there and then it cuts. And the next scene, there's a mariachi band and they're singing. And then they see Josh Brolin just bleeding out from his stomach, and they stop their playing. And he asks for a hospital, and then we see him in the hospital.
We see him in the hospital, and Woody Harrelson comes to visit him.
That's right.
So Carson Wells is telling him about Anton Chigurh. Or as
Sugar.
Yeah. As Josh Brolin likes to say, sugar.
And he still has no idea. He's seen this guy. He's like, oh, you've seen him and you're here to talk to talk to me about it. And again, he has no idea how lucky he is he survived this.
Yeah.
He's like he'll kill you for inconveniencing him.
Which
and then
has happened in this movie.
Yes. It has happened in this movie. And then he just speaks plain, didn't take me long for me to find you here, which means he can find you here. But he's going to go where he thinks you're going to be next, which is your wife in El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
Because at first he says, he's going to be in El Paso. Why would he be in El Paso? And that's when, it's why would he be in El Paso? Because that's where your wife's going to be. So he realizes, his wife's still in danger. And so, it's I'm over, I'm across the way at the Eagle Pass, which is the hotel he was just in.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of strange. They didn't really shut that down, even though after all the violence that just occurred at it. Anyhow, so he leaves him his number, and then as Wells is walking back across the border, he's looking around and he figures out exactly where Llewellyn threw the briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks back and he gets in the hotel and he's walking up the steps, and then Javier Bardem starts walking up behind and says, "Hello, Carson. Let's go to your room."
So they go to the Carson's room and sit down, and they're talking.
They have a chat.
Have a little chat. And then Anton shoots Carson.
Yep. Carson just goes you don't have to kill me. I got some money. I'll leave you some money. I'll go back to my day job.
Yeah,
pretend he never saw me.
Yeah, he's you don't have to do this. He's like, that's what they all say.
So then they're calling, and then the phone rings.
Mm-hmm.
And then the shotgun goes off.
Yep.
Woody Harrelson's arms go, bleh. He's got wacky, wavy, inflatable arms.
Wacky, waving, inflatable arm filling tube band.
And the other line is Llewellyn, and I love how he's like, "Is Carson there?" And he's like, "In a matter of speaking," but not. And they keep talking. It's like, And he says, like, I can make you a deal. I can't spare your life. I can spare your wife's life if you give me the money. Meanwhile, they show a shot, and the blood's just starting to stream down the floor. Anton picks up his legs. So he doesn't get his feet with blood.
Yep.
And, the one's like, I'm making you my mission. Right? And that's that.
And
so,
and Anton is like, yeah, come here or your wife is dead.
Yeah.
Come to me or your wife is dead, or tell me where you are. And that's when Llewellyn's like, no, you know what? You're going to see me because I'm coming after you. You threatened my wife. I'm coming after you.
Which, I mean, hey, more power to him.
Yeah.
Like, I get you. And I'm sorry it did not work out that way for you.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, don't bother looking for me because I'll find you.
Will you?
So.
Debatable. Okay, so we forgot. I think before all this is also when he kind of do Anton's little own surgery on himself.
Yeah,
because he's been shot. I love how he goes around, like, he realizes that he's not going to go to the hospital or any of that, and so he's able to take off some shirt and he's puts it into the gasoline tank of a car.
Mm-hmm.
He lights it on fire.
That's right. Yeah.
And then,
right outside of a pharmacy.
Outside a pharmacy.
Yeah, blows up a car outside a pharmacy.
He just kind of walks in, he gets what he needs, and then he cuts
with the car exploding outside, everybody in the pharmacy is distracted by that, so they run out there. So he just walks behind the counter, gets what he needs, and then walks out.
Yeah. And then you see him do his little makeshift surgery in that motel room. Right? He gets all the bullets out, and he cauterizes everything, and that's it. That's when he's able to walk back and kill Woody Harrelson. So,
yep.
So, meanwhile, we haven't talked about Ed Tom Bell in a while.
No, we haven't.
So he's back in his office. He's talking to his secretary, right? And he's asking her, there's anything on those vehicles, right? And he's like, yeah, all those vehicles out there are titled and registered to dead people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the owner of the Blazer died 20 years ago. Do you want to see what I could find out about the Mexicans? I was like, no. And she gives him the checks, right? Because, people owed money. Anyway, so the DEA called them. You want to talk? It's like, no. I want to, try not talking to him as much as I can, right?
And this is when Ed goes and talks to Carla Jean, right?
Carla Jean's like, you know what? I'm going to call Carla Jean, right? Like, can you tell Loretta I'm going to go out to Odessa to visit Carla Jean? It's like, yeah. It's like, no. I'll call her when I get there, but, if I call her now, she's going to want me to come home. I might. Right? So, like, I love the line. I love this line. It's like, then, she just asked him, like, do you want to wait till you quit the building to call her? And it's like, yeah, I think it's a good idea. So he goes off, and and actually it's funny. Like he encounters, like, they have a driver that actually takes care of, like, I guess some of the dead bodies, and he pulls him over because he's not tying down the load properly.
Yeah.
He's like, you're not going to give me a ticket, are you? And he just lets him go. So,
yeah.
So that scene's, I think, in the middle of kind of everything we just talked about. Anyway, so.
But, so he goes and talks.
Oh, yeah, we were forgetting about Ed Tom Bell. So he goes back and talks to Carla Jean.
Yeah. So they're sitting down, they're talking, and Ed Tom Bell is going around, and he's, relaying this story about, stuff like that. Just like he was, like, at the beginning in his voiceover, just telling how it's kind of like this other case that happened a while back. And then he starts talking about cattle.
Yeah.
And how one of the things that the slaughterhouses will use is this, basically it's a device that hooks up to an air tank that, you hit a button on it and it sends a rod just a few inches out, and then it, retracts it back in.
It basically stuns them so they can
clean
just
kill. Right.
kill them easily.
Because you basically stick it to their head and it goes into their brain and it kills them. Right. Yeah. And then that's when you kind of see the light bulb, light up in his brain. And he's like, that is how the guy died earlier.
And I mean, the whole point about it he's trying to make is like, there's things that you can't account for everything that might happen.
Yeah.
And he talks about a particular guy that he's going to just try to shoot this cattle with a gun to kill it. Right. But he was thrashing around and he missed. And then the ricochet came back and hit him in the shoulder. And so that's why I was like that. Now it's,
now they use that thing.
The thing is stun it.
Pops the rod out. And
that's where it pops it out. And again, like you're saying, like it kind of clicks for him in his head. He never explicitly says it. You see it, the realization.
You see it in his eyes.
Right. And like you're saying, like the point being, because like she's just trying to make the point. It's like, oh no, Llewellyn can take care of himself. And he does a pretty good job for the most part.
Yeah.
But it's like the point being is like even in the contest between man and cow, the issue is not certain. Right? Right? And so he just kind of tells him, like, if Llewellyn calls, just tell him I can make him safe.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they cut back. I think that, that might be even between all the stuff that's happening down in El Rio. I mean, Carson might technically still be alive when they're having all that. I have no idea.
Yeah. But yeah, so then we have Llewellyn out of the hospital, still in his hospital gown, and he's got a robe on, and he walks up to the border.
Like, do you know he gets across this border?
Yeah, he's having a conversation with the border guard, and
it's like, I do. I say who gets across this border. This border patrol agent, he's a hard ass.
Yeah. He's like, I can't let
Donald Trump would love this guy.
He's like, I can't let you over. You don't have any clothes. And he, grabs the robe that he's wearing. He's like, well, I got an overcoat. And so they're talking a little bit more, and it doesn't seem like he's going to let Llewellyn pass. And
I was like, I love it about the overcoat. Like, are you jacking with me? I was like, no, sir. And the official's like, don't jack with me. He's like, yes, sir. And that's when he's like, you in the service? It's like, yeah, I served in Nam.
Yep, I'm a veteran.
It's like, I did 2 tours. And he's like, oh, what outfit? Well, it was, the infantry, but August of like 66 to July of 68. The guy just stares at him. Again, great acting right here.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect casting, right? He's like, he calls over to some other like subordinate. He's like, Wilson, get this man some clothes.
Yeah.
Right. And he lets him pass, right?
And then he goes right back into the same place where he bought the boots before. Walks in, the same clerk.
Looks like he asks like, how those Larry's hair holding up? The brand of boot he bought.
He's like, they're holding up just fine, but I might need a little more. I might need some more clothes. He's wearing the boots. He's wearing the boots he bought before. So he's still got those, but the rest of his clothes, it's just a hospital gown and the robe.
Yeah. And he just asked point blank, the clerk, like, you get a lot of people in here without no clothes on? He's like, no, sir. It's unusual. Right? And where did they go? I lost it here for a second. Mark Miles, we talked about. I had the actor's name up for this. Because again, perfect casting. He's what? This guy gets 2 scenes, right?
Yeah.
I don't have his name right here right away. But anyway, he does a great job. We missed a scene. There's another scene where Wendell and Ed Tom Bell kind of talking about unusual things. And again, it kind of gets to the kind of gallows humor that they can sometimes have. And it's like, it was really about this couple that would take in these elderly people in California, and then they would kill them and cash their Social Security checks.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, they got discovered when man came out wearing a dog collar. you know, it's like you would think that people would have been alerted when they were digging holes in the backyard. But no. I don't know, like Garrett Dillahunt just he laughs at it, and you know, because it's Tommy Lee Jones, he's always matter of fact, like, oh, it's okay. I laugh sometimes myself. It's like no, you don't, Tommy Lee Jones.
No.
You never laugh.
We've all seen Men in Black. Yeah, so then we have then after Llewellyn buys new clothes and a Stetson, he buys a new hat too.
That's right.
Then we have him going back to get the briefcase. So he goes back down to where he threw it, gets it, and then we've got him.
He calls back to call Jean, right?
Yeah.
So he actually gets to talk to her again. So they're talking on the phone, and he's kind of telling her what to do. And she just says, like, "Oh, I had the sheriff here." It's like he's like, I didn't know what to tell him, right? And she's like, "You're hurt, ain't ya?" He's like, "Yeah, well, what makes you say that?" It's like, "I can hear it in your voice." And then you get Beth Grant in the background. There's falseness in his voice, right? And he just tells her, like, maybe this hotel in El Paso. I'll meet you there, right? And we'll get on a plane. This right. And his whole idea is, like, his thought is, if he can get her on a plane, she's going to be safe, and he can deal with Sugar.
Yes, he can deal with Sugar. All right.
However, then from now on will be called Sugar.
Sugar. So then is this when we get Sugar meeting the guy on the truck, or was that earlier?
Well, it's the other guy in the truck that has the chicken truck, right?
The chicken truck, yeah.
No, not yet. No. Sugar goes back to Dallas because he's gonna meet the man he hired, Wells.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, he goes back to the man who hired Wells, and there's another guy in the office with him.
From accounting.
And so Sugar just walks into the office.
He walks in and just
shoots man who hired Wells.
And like he's just bleeding out
because he's convulsing. He's still got a shotgun. He's still got a shotgun with a giant silencer on it. And it just shoots him right in the chest, and man who hired Wells is laying on the floor convulsing, and the guy from accounting is just sitting in the chair just watching all this happen.
Sugar asks him, "Who are you?" He's like, "Nobody." Accounting.
He's like, "Do you see anything?" He's like, "No."
He's like, he says, like, he gave Acosta's people, so like apparently, like, okay, like, he knows, like, okay, he gave certain people a receiver, and it's like, oh yeah, he's like, this is one of my favorite lines. He's like, he feels, and he pauses. He felt.
Yeah, he felt that.
The more people looking, right? So.
Yeah. So Sugar.
Finally,
leaves him.
He asks Sugar, "Are you gonna shoot me?"
And Sugar is like, "Did you see anything?" He's like, "Nope." Smart man.
And it just leaves it there. But I believe that Sugar left him alive.
I do too,
because he didn't see anything.
Yep. It was the whole coin flip thing.
Yeah. Choose the right answer.
Choose the right answer. He chose the right ansr. So, there was no coin involved this time, but yeah. Yeah. So then after that, we got.
I think it's when we get the scene is just Carla Jean and her mother.
Yeah, in a cab.
In the car. And she's wondering why they're going to El Paso. And she's just saying, "I said them very words, no and good." And then, Carla Jean's just like, "Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes. And she's just, but here we are. I got the cancer. I got no home to go to." She looks at the driver. She's like, "You know where we're going? El Paso, Texas. You know how many people I know in El Paso, Texas?"
And then she holds up her hand as a 0.
Which is just like, it almost like it's just like a nice little Beth Grant kind of flair to this role.
Yeah.
It's like when in Donnie Darko, she's envisioning when she had the Lifeline exercise card shoved into her anus.
Yep. Oh, inserted into her anus. Into her anus.
I'll tell you what he said. Hey, I'm sorry. Donnie Darko would politely ask her to insert the Lifeline exercise card into her anus.
Yes, to forcibly insert the Lifeline exercise card into her anus. But
would you please insert? You know what? We're jumping ahead.
Yeah.
That's a future episode. That's Donnie Darko episode, which we have not done yet.
No, we have not done that one yet.
We should do We will do Donnie Darko, and we'll talk about the Lifeline exercise card being inserted into said anus.
But anyway, so back to No Country for Old Men.
Anyway, yes. Well, finally they get there. They get to No Country for Old Men. They get to a bus station.
Mm-hmm.
And they get out, and Carla Jean goes off, right? And they make a call.
She's gonna get their bus tickets, and
she goes to get bus tickets, right? And then a well-dressed Mexican shows up, and he's very polite. He's like,
yes, he's very polite.
Any help with your bags, man? It's like, I was like, well, if there's one gentleman left in West Texas, yes, thank you. I am old and not well. And I was like, which bus are you taking? And she's like, we're going to El Paso, but don't ask me why. My son-in-law. Like, it's fun. She's like, thank you. One of my other favorite lines in this movie. You don't see many Mexicans in a suit. She just complimented him on being polite.
Yes.
And that's like, not many Mexicans wear suits. But instead he just says, you go to El Paso. I know it. Where are you staying? And apparently she tells him.
Yeah. Apparently she tells him.
We just cut to Carla Jean now back on the phone with the sheriff, and like she's now had a conversation with Llewellyn.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, he promised not to hurt him. And she tells him, and he's going to meet me here in El Paso.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, we don't get the whole conversation about it. But so, I love one of our favorite things, like that story about Charlie Walser, the guy that got shot in the shoulder that we talked about. It's like, is that a true story?
He's like, I don't know. Wait,
who?
He's like, who? Yeah, the guy that got shot in the shoulder. Like, is that true? Well, it's true that it's a story.
That's right. That's true. That's a story. He does it, and only the way Tommy Lee Jones could talk about only Tommy Lee Jones could play this character.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, are you certain that's a true story? He's like, well, I'm certain it's a story. but yeah. It's spoken in the way that only Tommy Lee Jones can say that. But yeah. So then we get to Sugar.
Sugar, and this is when he's with the chicken truck guy.
Chicken truck guy. So there's a pickup truck with chickens all in the back. Yeah, it's a flatbed truck that's just full of chicken crates, and it's the guy standing on the side of the road talking to Sugar.
And Sugar, he's pretending his car is broken down, and they're trying to jump it, and they're just having conversation.
Yeah, and
he's asking, "Oh, you're from around here, right?" He's like, "What airport would you use?" And he's like, "Airport or airstrip?"
Yeah,
and Sugar's like, "Oh, airport." The man's like, "Well, where are you going?" Which it's a good question.
Yeah, because
are you flying to Europe?
Yeah, that would determine which airport you go to.
Or you could even say there's some airports that you're just going to be flying kind of regionally. Some might fly nationally, and some might fly internationally.
He's like, you want to go to El Paso, or if you're wanting to go somewhere farther away, you're going to Dallas.
And then he realizes
Sugar isn't hooking up.
Sugar has not clamped.
The guy clamped both, his end of the jumper cables onto his truck, and Sugar has not clamped his onto his at all. So he's like, aren't you going to hook that up?
And Sugar just says, says, can you get those chicken crates out of the bed?
Like, what?
Oh, man. I feel, again,
And
there's so many innocent people in this movie.
Wrong place, wrong time. And so next thing we see, Sugar is driving away in the guy's truck, and there's no more chicken crates on the back of it.
Yeah. And then he's in the car wash. And
there's just feathers flying around.
And he's just washing it all out.
Yep.
Yeah. And then next thing we cut to Llewellyn. He's now in El Paso. And
he's in El Paso. He's walking by. He's walking past the pool at the motel. And
and there's this woman. She's out there by the pool. She's in her swimsuit.
Anna Reeder.
Hey, Mr. Sporting Goods.
Anna Reeder playing poolside woman.
Poolside woman. Yep. Apparently there's a poolside man. I don't remember there being a poolside man.
Huh. I don't remember there being a poolside man either.
Anyway.
But yeah, so Llewellyn goes into his room.
She's a person that, likes to frequent kind of bars or roadhouses in West Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk.
Obviously,
and then she's like,
obviously they had interacted before because she referred to him as Sporting Goods guy.
Yeah.
Mr. Sporting Goods.
And finally she's like, I got beers in my room. And then he's like, no, I'm waiting for my wife.
And he, shows his ring.
They keep looking at it, and finally, they go around. It's like, And she's like, I got beer. You bring the ice. It's like, ma'am, I know what beer leads to. And it's she's just like, beer leads to more beer. So it also leads to coitus.
Yes. Emotional catharsis. So he goes to the room.
And then the scene cuts.
Yep.
And now we just get back to Sheriff Bell.
And he's driving down the road.
And he's approaching the motel, and here's gunfire.
And then he sees a pickup truck pull out into traffic, it's swerving out there.
Speeding away. Yeah.
People running and getting into it, and it speeds away. And so he pulls up into the parking lot of the motel, gets out of his car, and he
hears screaming, there's crying, right? There's a man that's kind of crawling on the ground. And then there's poolside woman. She's floating in the pool.
Face down in the pool.
Been dead.
Bloody. And walks up to Llewellyn's motel room, looks in there, and Llewellyn is laying down dead on the carpet.
And then there's the people in the room next door. They kind of peek out. It's like, call the cops. Call your law enforcement, right? And he's like, I'm not on the radio right now because he's not local. He can't just call on his station.
Yeah.
To say, ask for help, right? So, and it cuts. And that's nighttime. Carla Jean shows up. Sheriff Bell's there. It's a crime scene. It's obviously a crime scene.
And she's walking up to it. He meets her out in the parking lot and kind of
hangs her head.
Yeah, kind of hangs his head.
And she starts weeping. They never got to see each other again. That's sad.
Nope. And this is one of those times where, like, the guy we've been following the entire movie, we don't see him die. We just see him after he's been killed.
Yes.
And it wasn't Sugar who killed him.
It wasn't Sugar. It was Mexicans.
Yeah, it was the other group going after the drugs. They're going after the money for the drugs.
They both wanted it. They all wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. Like, I could see how, when it first came out, it was kind of a topic conversation for a little bit. And I could see, even if you saw it for the first time, I'd be like, oh, wow, that seems weird that you don't get like this actual confrontation. But it's very
Coen Brothers to do it this way.
Oh, yes, it is. It's very Coen Brothers. It fits kind of with everything in the movie that, like, you don't know what's coming. It's unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
It just fate happens. Whatever happens is the way it happens. You can't control it. And, like, we've almost forgotten that other people were looking for this money.
Yeah.
We saw it earlier, right? Like, there are people there that beat Sugar to the first motel.
Yep.
And he took care of them. This time, they also have their ways of finding out what to do.
Yep.
And they did. And they got there and they killed Llewellyn.
Yep.
And he was so focused on the one end that he was not looking at the other.
Nope.
He thought he was so focused on Sugar, he was not thinking about everybody else. If he had, maybe he would have survived.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe. But then
Tom Bell talks with, like, the El Paso sheriff, right? And they have kind of a cup of coffee. They say goodbye. Like, they even talk about, like, how he killed Carson and the clerk, right? And, like, they have a nice little, he's like, oh, he's just a lunatic. And Tom was like, well, I'm not sure he's a lunatic. I was like, I don't know. Like, well, what do you call him? He's like, I don't know. I think he's pretty much a ghost. And, the other sheriff's like, oh, he's real. Well, yes. Right. But, I think there's this realization that there's, a different look at what the evil is. Right. Mm-hmm. So we haven't really talked about this in terms of Sugar. But there's a lot of clinical psychologists that have done studies on different villains in movies.
Mm-hmm.
And they have basically, a lot of them have said that, yeah, I think one of the ones that comes basically closest to what the definition of a true psychopath would be.
Yeah, would be sugar.
Would be sugar. Which, yeah, I mean, I get it. But yeah, he operates differently. You can't explain it. You don't know what's going to happen.
Nope.
And like, yeah, he is kind of like a ghost because he kind of slips in and out of things very easily. And, you know, you're not expecting what's going to happen. Ed goes back to the motel, right? And it kind of cuts, like, you don't know. Like, you see Sugar in the shower.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, he goes back to the motel and
he gets back there and he sees again that the lock has been shot out.
Shot out, yes.
So he knows what that looks like. And so he gets ready with his gun.
He draws his gun, pushes the door open, and just stands there for a second.
And there's nobody in there.
And then walks in, steps over the puddle of blood on the carpet.
Yeah.
From where Llewellyn was laying. And walks in there, checks the bathroom. Nobody's there. And you see Sugar hiding in the shadows in the corner. But he's just standing there. And so Ed Tom Bell, he looks in the bathroom, doesn't see anybody. So he goes and he sits down on the bed for a minute.
Yep. And he sees there's some screws out from the vent.
Mm-hmm. And a quarter.
So how long do they miss each other? I don't know. But they miss each other. And that's okay.
Well, again, I mean, my guess is Sugar actually saw Ed Tom Bell in there. He just didn't make himself known.
All right, I could buy that.
And that the sheriff didn't see him there, but he just, I guess, Sugar didn't really see it, didn't find it necessary to kill the sheriff at this point in time.
Yeah, but it'll just slip out.
So that's at least how I saw it. How I interpreted that scene. But yeah, so.
That's when he goes down to the other sheriff, Ellis.
Yeah.
And they have a whole conversation. And Ellis is his old sheriff that lives like
yes, that's right.
Rundown trailer.
Yeah. Ellis is basically his mentor.
Yeah. And they have this whole philosophical conversation because, like, the way you look at Ellis live, like, you wouldn't expect this.
Played by Barry Corbin.
Right? He's got all these cats.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, Barry Corbin is who plays them, and
he's in a wheelchair.
He's always just like, Bell is asking, how you been? And he's like, oh, you're looking at it. I gotta say, you look older too. It's like, got a letter from your wife. She writes regular and tells me the family news. I was told her you're quitting. I was like, Tom Bell looks at the pot of coffee. It's like, want a cup?
He's like, yeah. And he goes over to the port.
How fresh is this?
How fresh is this? He's like, I always make a fresh pot every week, whether there's more left or not. A fresh pot every week.
And then,
and we don't know how far into the week this is.
We don't. Hey, listen, sometimes old diner sludge coffee can be good, but I don't know about that. But, so he tells him about how some guy he shot died in prison, right? So they just kind of go back and forth about like, some of it's like there's this futility of things, right? And it's like, I feel overmatched, right? I feel like, when I got older, God would give me some sort of like come to life moment. And I was like, you don't know what God thinks. They keep going back and forth about these old stories. Like, again, goes back to the beginning of the movie, right?
Yeah.
So it goes back to what Tom Bell was saying in our opening narration, right? Like, he likes hearing the story of the old guys, right? Mm-hmm. And here he's talking to the old guys, and he's getting to talk to his mentor, right? And he's telling him the story about this particular heinous crime.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's always been things that are like this. And then it's like, he tells him, like, what you got ain't nothing new. This country's always hard. There's people that are crazy and hard that got the devil in them. And he just says, like, you're discouraged. And, Ed's like, oh, yeah, I am discouraged. It's like, well, you can't stop what's coming. Like, there's going to be these hard things. And if you think that's going to not happen because you're around, you're just vain. This is essentially what he tells him.
Yeah.
It's like, it's an interesting way of looking at it. And that's when we cut to the funeral. Right.
And it looks like it might be Llewellyn's funeral, but it's not.
No. It is Carla Jean's mother's funeral. Yes. The cancer got her.
Yep. The cancer,
which I think is hilarious. When you look at the headstone, like she died like in her late 50s, and she looks like in this movie she's like 70s.
She looks like she's like almost 90.
Again, like Carla Jean herself is like maybe no more than 30. So
yeah,
about 60 makes sense.
Yeah.
And so Carla Jean's crying about her mother. You get it, right? Yeah, 58. Agnes. Yeah, of course her name is Agnes.
Of course her name's Agnes.
Carla Jean's in black. She's crying. He gets back. She's in her little home. She gets into her kitchen. I love when she gets into home. You hear two kids yelling at each other, having fun, whatever it is. She gets in. She gets to her kitchen, right? It seems like what might happen right after you bury your mother and you have no one else around because her husband's dead.
Yep.
She has no siblings, apparently. No father around. She goes to her room, and there's Sugar.
Yes, Sugar is waiting for her.
Sugar is making good on his promise.
Yes. And she sees him in there, and they're talking for a little bit, and she's like, "What are you doing? You don't have to." Maybe this is when she's like, "You don't have to do this," and he's like, "Everybody says that."
Said.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, he says it again, right? And she's like, "I only got the money, and what little I have is long gone, and there's still bills aplenty." And he's like, "I buried my mother today. And I ain't paid for that neither." he looks at her, he's like, "I wouldn't worry about that." But like again, it's he has to make good. He's making these promises. Apparently, this is also another scene that's slightly different from the book, where she challenges him more a little bit in this scene than she does in the book, which I think is good. She challenges him.
Yeah,
I think it works really well. Like the Coens know exactly what they need to do.
Yes.
Right. So she sits down, and again, she's still in her mourning clothes, right?
Yeah, she came straight from the funeral.
It's like, you got no cause to hurt me. He looks at her like, I gave my word. She's like, what? It's like, to your husband.
She's like, what? It's like, your husband decided to use you as bait instead of coming for me himself. And she's like, he wouldn't do that.
It's like, you don't know. He brought you into this. And she just looks at her like, I know you're crazy when I saw you sitting there. I know exactly what was in store for me. And I think this is like originally where it kind of cuts off. And it's like, anyway, you know what? The best I can do is for you to call it. Right? So he flips a coin.
Flips the coin.
Catches it. He puts it, again, this, like, in the first scene with the gas station, he has it on the counter. Here, he has it on, like, his knee.
Yeah.
And he's sitting down.
And he's like, call it.
I'm not going to call it.
Like, no, I'm not going to call it.
You're responsible. You can do what you want or not want to do. It's like, I'm not going to call it. And then we cut, and he's
cut to the outside of the house. The exterior of the house.
And he looks at his shoe, puts it back down, because he wants to make sure there's no blood. Poor Carla Jean.
Yeah, she did not deserve that.
She did not deserve to die like that. Fuck you, Sugar.
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 So he goes out and he gets in the car and he's driving.
And he's obeying the rules of the road because he just killed somebody.
Yes. So he pulls up to a red light and he stops.
It turns green.
And he goes.
He even waits a few seconds.
Yes.
Right? When light changes, you don't go right away because someone might run the light. Yeah. He's obeying the rules of the road.
Yes. And so as he pulls out in the intersection and his green light, he gets T-boned from somebody who's running the red light. And, he kind of stumbles out of the car. He's all bloody. He's got a broken arm, bones sticking out of his arm.
Bones sticking out. Like it's sticking out.
Yeah.
Like it's a compound fracture.
Yeah. And these kids come up.
And like he's kind of in shock. He's shaken because he's bloody, he's got glass and these two kids coming up that we heard earlier.
Yep.
And they're on bikes and like they talk about how some guy over there called the fire station, right? Like they say, yeah, the ambulance is coming. And then one was like, look at all that blood.
Yeah.
It's like it's the one that you think would be the one that I think would be like kind of the harder ass. It's like, look at all that blood.
Yeah. So Anton asks one of them, he tells him he wants to buy a shirt. It's the second time somebody has tried to buy a shirt off a kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And halfway through the movie, and now here at the end.
So
gives him a stack of money.
He
gives him the shirt.
And he's also like, and don't tell anyone about me.
It's like, I've already gone. I've already left. Because he makes a little like makeshift sling.
He makes a sling out of the shirt. He sort of stumbles off, and then the kids are arguing over the money because the one that gave him the shirt, he's like, no, he gave this to me for my shirt. He's like, that's not what he gave you the money for.
So he's like, you still have a shirt. And then Sugar just walks off as a ghost.
And we don't hear from him again.
Yep. And we just get one last scene.
Tommy Lee Jones and
Tom
his
Bell
kitchen.
and his wife. He's now retired. He has no idea what to do with his life.
Yep.
He's retired. All he knows is law.
Yep.
Right.
And so his wife asks him, how'd you sleep? He's like, not very well. I had a couple of dreams.
I had dreams.
He's like, well, tell me about them. He's like, well, strange thing, my dad was in both of them.
Well, before he says that, like, he says like it's weird because like I'm older now than he ever was.
Yeah.
20 years. which is kind of a strange thing you start to think about
Mm-hmm.
when you get older.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's like, yeah, so in a way, he's like the younger man when I had these dreams. It's like, yeah, he says, like, the first one I don't really remember well. But it was about meeting him in town somewhere, and he gave me some money, and I think I lost it. And then the second was like, we were back in the older times.
In older times.
I was on horseback going through the mountains. It was cold and snowing. It was hard riding and hard country. He rode past me, and he kept going. He didn't say nothing, right? He's like, he just rode on past, and he had his blanket and his head down. He rode past. I see he was carrying fire. He was carrying fire away the horn the way people used to do. And I could see the horn. It was about the color of the moon. In the dream, I knew that he was going to on ahead of me, that he was fixing to make a fire somewhere out there in all the dark and all the cold. And then finally he thinks about, like, whenever I got there, he would be there, right? You know, I think is that the last word?
Yeah, something like that.
And like, he's like, and he
Then
would
I
be
woke
there. And that's the last line.
Then I woke up.
It's like he keeps going. Like, again, it's like this is the theme. Like, we're all going to our end.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we're young, old, whatever the circumstance, we're all going to our death.
But then right after he said, then I woke up, the screen goes black and the credits start coming up.
And again, even the credits, minimal music.
Mm-hmm.
Minimal score. And it's fascinating because, like, it's a Western. It's also kind of a brutal movie. It's nihilistic in many ways. It's I wouldn't straight up call it nihilistic, but to understand kind of the Coen's point of view.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those ones where it's one of those movies where the bad guy gets away with everything.
Yeah, he does.
The bad guy essentially wins.
And it's funny, like, you know, it's not necessarily a movie you would think would win Best Picture.
No, but
you know, I know a lot of people now today would say, like, oh yeah, maybe There Will Be Blood should have won. You can debate it. I don't know. They're both fantastic movies, and There Will Be Blood, it's not a typical Best Picture movie either. For that matter, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, The Silence of the Lambs is not your typical Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're both bleak and violent, and you know, Casablanca I think is a little bit more in line with I would kind of think towards a Best Picture.
Yeah,
in terms of ones that are at least good. But yeah, it's No Country for Old Men. It's the Coens.
Yeah, it's
and they follow this up with Burn After Reading, which is just absurdist comedy. So, but they know what they're doing. It's hard not to respect, you know, even their lesser movies. Like, you just kind of have to respect what they do. Yeah. This is not one of their lesser movies. I would still put Big Lebowski as my favorite.
Yes, absolutely.
But this is a worthy Best Picture winner, in my opinion. So
yeah, it is. But yeah, so if anything else you think we missed?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it really well. No, it's been 17 years now. I remember when it won. So that's why it's kind of cool doing this, because like Silence of the Lambs, you know, it was 7 or whatever it was. And obviously Casablanca was so old. Yeah, this is kind of in the middle of when this is really getting into movies and following all this. And I was really excited about it because I remember watching this movie in the theater. And yeah, I was like, it lived up to my expectations when I saw it, and I was winning all the awards. And I was just like, I need Oscar to actually get this right and not award a movie that I think is not as good Best Picture. And it won. I really love that. And I've seen it multiple times since then. And yeah, I could easily watch this just about whenever I want to watch it. And so I think that's probably my last word on that.
All right. Well, if you enjoy the podcast and you want to follow us on social media, go ahead and check us out on Facebook and Instagram and Threads. We are Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The and is spelled out A&D. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. We're also on X or Twitter. That is R&T Cinematic. And we are on Letterboxd, so you can check that out, see our reviews on various movies, some we've done on the podcast, some we haven't done, some we will do, some we won't do. But that is Cine Adventure or Cine Adventure, CINE Adventure. And if you want to send us an email, let us know what you thought of No Country for Old Men. It's Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure at gmail.com. Once again, the and is spelled out. It's not an ampersand like it is in the name of the podcast. Yeah, just shoot us an email. Let us know what you think of the movie. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's a worthy Best Picture? Do you think that There Will Be Blood should have won instead?
Hey, if he did,
you know? I'm
okay with that. Both movies are great. So it's one of those ones where, like, yeah, okay, maybe the other one should have won. I don't know, but I'm fine with either one having. If There Will Be Blood would have won, I've been okay with it as well. So.
Yeah, so if you want to send us an email, you know, it can be about that. It can be about something else.
You can just speak about some other details of the movie that you.
Yeah. If you have suggestions of other movies that you think we should cover, you know, then just, shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you.
Is your favorite Coen brother movie Barton Fink?
It might be.
Maybe it's The Man Who Wasn't There.
Maybe.
What's your favorite Josh Brolin movie?
Is it Deadpool
2? We have done a Josh Brolin
movie. Is it The Goonies?
That's very good. Is it The Goonies? We will do The Goonies.
Yes, we will. Not next, though. But
next still has to be a Best Picture movie.
If you had,
which Josh Brolin has been in one.
Mm-hmm. if you enjoy the podcast and you want to help support us, then go to our social media, give us a like and a follow, go to your favorite podcast app, hit that subscribe button, and give us a good rating, a good review. That's how we move up in the standings and the ratings and the recommendations, all that stuff. And yeah, that way we can be brought to a wider audience so we can reach more ears. But yeah, so if you like what you're hearing, then please do all that and help get our little podcast out to more people.
Help us grow.
Help us grow.
Grow.
Be the miracle grow to our ferns.
There you go. Anyway.
So, anyway, next time we are going to be continuing our Best Picture Winners series, and we're going to be going back a couple of decades from this one.
Yeah, I like this because, we had the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
we had the 40s,
Then we had the
late
2000s.
aughts.
And now we're going back to the 70s.
So, yeah, I think it'd go in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like the nice middle.
We're going to the 70s. We're going to be talking about The Sting.
The Sting. I'm excited about this
I am
because
too.
it's kind of one of the forgotten. I shouldn't say forgotten, but it's like in the middle of like the Godfather movies.
Mm-hmm.
And they had One Flew to the Cuckoo's Nest, and it's got Robert Redford and Paul Newman in it. So it's got like these massive stars of that time period, but it's not the first movie you would say of Best Picture winner of the 70s.
Yeah.
But I know there's people that I know some people that love this movie. So
yeah, and
I've only seen it maybe one or two times.
I've never seen it.
I'm excited to do this.
So I'm excited to do it because it's a movie that's been on my list of movies to check out for years. And I've just never gotten around to seeing it. And so now I get to watch it for the podcast. So you'll get to have another one of those ones that, my first reaction is going to be on the podcast.
Yeah, and again, it's been like almost, we'll get to it, almost 50, probably about 15, more than 15 years since I've seen it. So, and I don't recall a lot of it. So I'm excited to explore this one together.
Yeah. So join us next time for The Sting.